Hello there, very good morning to you. It is exactly 6 o'clock on this Wednesday, 14th of February, St. Valentine's Day. And this is Breakfast with Eamonn and Ellie.
Labour is in turmoil. Another suspension over anti-Semitic remarks. Sir Keir Starmer now playing catch-up to defend his party.
Well, those comments were appalling, and that is why we took decisive action.
Yes, Keir Starmer is having to defend himself once again, saying that the party has changed. But with two parliamentary candidates suspended for alleged anti-Semitism, will voters really believe him?
Tributes pouring in for the legendary BBC broadcaster Steve Wright, one of the country's most loved radio voices.
How close are we to a recession? Well, inflation figures at 7 o'clock will reveal all.
And in the sport this morning, Manchester City beat Copenhagen. There's more visa problems for England cricketers in India. And in sport fashion, Tiger Woods launches his new golfwear range. How about that?
Hello there. Cloudy skies for many of us today. Temperatures well above average for the time of year. Find out how high coming up later in the programme.
If you go out and buy a newspaper today, all over the front pages, you'll see pictures of the late Steve Wright. Can't believe I'm saying that. 69 years of age, sudden death, and much loved, really much loved, legendary, it has to be said. Paul Coit is here, still in the studio. And Paul, your early days, big musical influences. You were a DJ as well, and you would have recognised a lot in Steve Wright that just set him apart.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the majority of my career has been radio and over 30 years, and Steve Wright. Everybody looked at him as truly one of the greats. And you know, the times we've spoken about people that pass away and you always get the, oh, they were this, they were that. I mean, he was really one of the true radio greats of this country. And also what he was doing, which I think was really important, was very much different to the old radio style that we were used to from Tony Blackburn, etc.
He didn't just turn up and do it, whether people would realise that or not.
Yeah.
What was different about the way he constructed a show?
I think he was a technician. He was a great technician. He was someone that oversaw it. People would listen to the radio and you think, oh, you just rock up and, you know, you play some songs, you have a bit of chat. This is always what people would always say to me and to loads of other people. But what he did was he was a great technician, especially with his Radio 2 show. So that afternoon show, which he should still have been on right up until the very end. Interviews and guests, everything very carefully researched, the amount of work that went on behind the scenes, and he would oversee it, things that would be recorded, he would listen to everything. And also, like, every single second made a difference to the broadcast. And that made him the real pro that he was.
I remember being influenced by him when I was on radio, and he introduced these voices, these scenarios. He had Gervais the hairdresser, and he had all these characters, these characters that would have been somebody doing a voice for them. And I remember doing exactly the same thing on Downtown Radio in Northern Ireland, but using him as the inspiration, using him as the template, copying him, I suppose.
Well, everybody starts out that way, and all DJs would start out, and you'd have a favourite DJ, and then you would do pretty much their act, and then you would end up being yourself. Now, he really was a complete revolutionary, and he would look in the States. I mean, his influences would always have been what was going on in America, because as far as radio was concerned, it was light years ahead of what we were doing here, especially for the 70s and 80s. And then coming on to the 80s, it was just like this breath of fresh air. So the shows that he was doing for Radio 1 at the time were hilarious. It was different. There were characters, there was music, and nobody else was doing this. So he was brilliant.
Story.
Oh, there's hundreds of them, isn't there? Hundreds of that stuff.
So many things. Paul, really nice tribute. Thank you very much indeed. Steve Wright, who's died at the age of 69. And I must admit, I'm with you. You talk about him doing the afternoon show. And yet somebody somewhere has made the decision. You know, the BBC come out and they gush and they talk about how brilliant he is, how fantastic, whatever. And yet you sort of say, but not good enough still to do your afternoon show.
Exactly.
It's quite embarrassing. Actually.
Exactly. And the thing is, with someone like him, that would have been his life. That was what... It wasn't I will just turn up and do the show. That was a proper 12-hour day to put that show together. And to have that taken away, I think it was an awful shame for him and also a huge shame for listeners as well.
And a real shock to him as well. Eamonn, you were interviewed a number of times by him, weren't you?
Yeah, it was... The funny thing is, and maybe Paul could answer this, they were always pre-recorded interviews. He didn't do live interviews.
Because it had to be perfect. That was it. It had to be perfect. You would record... I knew his producer very well. And he would walk in and everything would be recorded, and then it would be studied. What's the best parts? Let's make it a little bit tighter. Let's take this bit out. So the actual listening experience would be perfect. Well, that was the reason.
None of that quality here on this show.
Well, I was going to say, you wouldn't have had to be recorded. I can't believe they recorded you. You'd always be able to deliver perfect. What was he thinking?
Steve Wright may rest in peace.
Yeah.
The time is now 6 minutes past the hour.
And the Labour Party are in turmoil this morning as Sir Keir Starmer is forced to drop a second parliamentary candidate due to alleged anti-Semitic comments.
Graham Jones used an expletive to refer to Israel and said British people who fight in their defence forces should be locked up.
Well, he was due to stand for Labour in his former seat of Hyndburn at the general election later this year. Well, let's bring in our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, who is live for us in Westminster. Very good morning to you, Olivia. Potentially not a very good morning for Sir Keir Starmer, who is facing a deepening crisis here.
Oh, good morning, Ellie. No, this is very awkward indeed for Keir Starmer. On Monday, he had to withdraw Labour's support for the Rochdale candidate, Azir Ali, and now he is withdrawing support for another candidate, Graham Jones. Graham Jones was an MP, a Labour MP, up until 2019, where he lost his seat of Hyndburn, and he is due to stand there again. Now, Labour, he is still technically the candidate for Labour in the same way that Azir Ali will be the candidate for Labour for Rochdale on the 29th of February, but there is an investigation going on, and at the moment, even if Graham Jones wins that seat, then he will not have the Labour whip when he's sitting in Parliament. This is obviously really, really tricky for Keir Starmer, because the one big promise that he made when he became leader, the first promise, the first thing which he said he was going to do, was to clean up Labour after the troubled reign of Jeremy Corbyn. And he has said over and over again that he has stamped out anti-Semitism from within the party. Can he be trusted on that when not one but two parliamentary candidates have been suspended over their comments on Israel? There are also a number of shadow ministers and other backbench Labour MPs and parliamentary candidates who've also made contentious comments about Israel in the past few months and years. Will they come under investigation too? It does feel as though this might just be the tip of the iceberg. As well as that, you've got the issue of who was there when these alleged anti-Semitic comments were made. Azir Ali and Graham Jones both spoke at a Labour private meeting back in October, and it's thought that a number of other Labour MPs and possibly shadow frontbenchers as well were there. If it was discovered that they were indeed present and that they didn't speak up, is that a matter for disciplining as well? Keir Starmer will have to make that decision. And of course, he'll have to make that decision very quickly indeed, because the problem on Monday was that he waited too long. On Sunday night, late last week, he was still defending Azir Ali, and he was sending out shadow ministers to defend him on the broadcast round. When he eventually withdrew support, many felt it was too little, too late. So this time, he'll be very, very wary, and it's possible that any Labour MPs, parliamentary candidates, could be out on their ear sooner rather than later if it's found that they have made any controversial remarks about Israel, which could be seen as anti-Semitic.
Yes, but what if they're not anti-Semitic? What if they're just a controversial remark? Does this mean that there can be no criticism of the Israeli state or the Israeli armed forces from now on without you being dubbed anti-Semitic? And all this talk about he allegedly said this, he allegedly said that. He did say it. It's on tape. What are we beating about the bush for all of this for? So my worry, my concern is, sitting here as a journalist, if I'm to make some criticism or some question that's deemed to be critical of the Israeli state, am I going to be deemed to be anti-Semitic as a result?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, and there are plenty of left of the Labour Party MPs saying exactly the same thing at the moment. There are obviously legitimate criticisms to be made of the Israeli regime, and plenty of Jews in Israel are criticising Netanyahu as well. So I think that's the decision which Keir Starmer is going to have to be very, very careful about. He doesn't want to be going off suspending all sorts of people who have made critical comments of the Israeli regime. He has to work out exactly who has said exactly what and whether or not that can actually be classed as anti-Semitic. So Keir Starmer is going to have a real job on his hands in the coming days and weeks.
Olivia, thank you very much. Keep us posted throughout the morning, Olivia, as reaction to this story comes in. Thank you. We'll just outline who is standing in the Rochdale by-election, for those of you on radio particularly. Azir Ali, who's an independent. Mark Coleman, who's also an independent. Simon Danchuk, Reform UK. Ian Donaldson, Liberal Democrat. Paul Ellison, Conservative.
George Galloway, the Workers' Party of Britain, Michael Howarth, Independent, William Howarth, Independent, Guy Otten, Green Party, Ravin Rodent, Subortner, Official Monster Raving Loony Party, and David Tully, Independent.
Voters in Wellingborough head to the polls tomorrow. This is one of two by-elections. The Northamptonshire constituency is up for grabs after an investigation found the long-standing former Conservative MP Peter Bone, you may remember, accused of committing acts of bullying and sexual misconduct.
Well, support for a recall petition in Wellingborough was triggered the by-election. But what are the issues that matter most to voters? Well, we sent our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis to find out.
Oh, it's horrible. Get your dinghies out and get your rowing boats out.
Sid has lived in Wellingborough since he was 3 years old. Now aged 58, few people know it better.
There's Clark's shut. Supercuts are shut. There's about 5 or 6 shut in there.
He's seen the town change.
It used to be the market area since 1267, and it went a couple of years ago. It was a damn good market.
Sid says it's not safe in Wellingborough at night.
Once it gets near dark, go home now.
A by-election is coming to the town. The Northamptonshire constituency is ideal for testing political temperatures ahead of the general election. Locals like Martin say the town needs more money.
We need investment. We have empty shops all over the place that are being dilapidated.
Wellingborough is suffering from many of the same symptoms that are familiar across English towns: antisocial behaviour, crime, and not enough jobs for people who do want to work but can't find the employment that's right for them. Employment here is traditionally low wage. Skilled or not, it can be tough to compete.
You throw one up there, and when it reaches that point there, you throw the next one up.
Even if you're willing to learn. Keith's desperate to find a job, but right now it isn't easy. He's juggling unemployment and family loss. Stress is taking a toll.
I think that might be because of the cost of living, and also another thing which is against me slightly is age. But as I say, if they could find businesses which do employ older people, that would be more than helpful.
The elected MP may only last a few months. By-election success can be fleeting. The people counting on change remain regardless of results. Sid still has hope for his hometown.
If they update it how it's supposed to be in the 21st century, it'd be a nice place. How it used to be. It would be a lovely place to live. That's why people are moving out. They've had enough.
Will Hollis, GB News in Wellingborough.
you mention one candidate, we do have to mention the other candidates that are
really?
standing. We do legally.
Really?
That's
How
why-
long's this list?
Well, hopefully not as long as the other one, but these are the candidates standing in the Wellingborough by-election. So Nick, the flying brick,
We kid you not.
delves, believe it or not, from the Monster
You'll
Raving
not
Loony
believe
Party.
it, but he's from the Monster Raving Loony Party, right? Ben Habib, friend of this show, Reform UK. Helen Harrison, Conservative Party. Jen Kitchen, Labour Party. Ankit Love. Janhap J. Mala, Post-Mortem Independent. And Alex Marola, Britain First.
Will Morris, the Green Party, Andre Pine Bailey, Independent, Anna Savage Gunn, Liberal Democrats, Marion Turner Hawes, Independent, Kevin Watts, Independent.
OK. Why does no one just have a plain name nowadays, Ben Smith or whatever? Why has everybody got double-barrelled names?
Do you know, I don't actually know double-barrelled names.
It's a thing.
Maybe it's people not wanting to give up their names when they get married.
Yes, yeah, could well be. Could well be. So what will you give up your name when you're married?
I don't know yet. I think that's a point of contention.
Oh,
Don't know what we're gonna do.
that means you're thinking about it.
Well, thinking about it.
What would you become if you did give up your name? What would you become?
Durkin.
Durkin? That's not a bad name.
You don't think so?
Ellie Durkin.
But my current name is Costello, which is
Yes, I'm aware
very
what
nice.
your name is.
Yeah,
yes.
but which one do you prefer out of those two?
Well, Costello's very Irish. It's Italian, but it's Italian Irish.
Durkin's Irish.
Durkin is very Irish as well. So would I. Neither would.
So you're happy with both? He's
very
like,
happy with
you're
both.
fine. Either way, you're fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
And as
not
will
sure.
the hubby be, because he'll just be lucky getting you.
Oh, well,
on
that's
this,
very
on this
cute.
Valentine's
Thank
Day,
you.
and it hasn't gone amiss that you're wearing red today.
Thank you. I even put on red lipstick. I'm trying to make an effort.
Yeah.
Valentine. And you're on your red as well.
Yes, yes. We're just exuding love.
Oh, we are.
Exuding love waves out there. We
On this day of love.
Hope you're waking up to a loving token this morning, something that makes you feel wanted and adored and cherished.
Well, oh, that's nice. What would be a lovely love token for you? You'd like a bacon baguette.
No, I just like, just care and attention is nice. Just to be noticed is nice. Yeah, just to be noticed.
No, you are noticed everywhere you go.
Appreciated would be nice as well.
And you are appreciated everywhere you go as well.
Oh, gosh, look what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Steve Wright today, and I'm thinking there's another one gone. And it's getting like a conveyor belt, and I'm getting closer to the end now.
Don't say that.
Fall off
Don't say
there.
that. I've got a long time to go.
Would you say nice things about me when I'm
Of
gone?
course I will, yeah. But you're not going anywhere anytime soon.
OK.
Still a spring chicken.
Tell you what we are going to. We're going to bring you some of the other stories coming into the newsroom on this Wednesday morning.
Yes, and over 100 women who froze their eggs and embryos in a leading London clinic have been told they may have damaged them thanks to a fault in the freezing process. It's believed that many of the patients have since received cancer treatment, meaning freezing their eggs was possibly their only chance at fertility.
Violence by the public against shop workers rose by 50% last year, says the British Retail Consortium. Reports that incidents of shoplifting are also at record highs has caused industry bosses to call the situation a crisis.
And Sunday's American football Super Bowl game is still making headlines. It's become the second most watched TV programme of all time after the Apollo 11 moon landing, with a viewership of 123 million. Lots of that is down to these two, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
That American football thing, it's not comparable. You can't sit and say, there's more people than watch the moon landings. First of all, it's available to more people than at the moon landing times, which was 1969. And secondly, I just don't believe it anyway. It's a boring sport. You'll watch that half-time business, all that razzmatazz and whatever, but...
Oh, I like the
I didn't watch it. I'd like to put it on record. I didn't watch it anyway.
Neither did I. But I do like the half-time bit.
No, you told me.
More people tune in for the half-time bit than they tune in for the entire game. Do you know that?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So,
just put on the show.
Is it? But I don't believe that, given the choice or the chance of watching, more people would have watched that game of football than they would have watched the moon landings. It just wasn't available to more people in those days. Valentine's Day today, we're saying last February the 14th, when dating websites are at their busiest and singletons are looking for love. What do you do? Oh, you think I could be like Barry White?
That was good.
I could have been the walrus of love.
No, you're not.
Could have been. So what do you do? Do you swipe left or right? What do you do?
I don't know. It's been a long time since I was on the apps. I think it's
Did you
left
go on
if
an
you-
app? Did you?
Yeah.
Did anybody make you an offer?
Yeah.
Yes?
On the apps, yes. But they're not very good. Well, I didn't think they were very good. But I think there's a lot more choice now. I think you left to no and right to yes. Let me know if I'm right on that one. I'm not sure. But I think it's left.
I would just like to put my toe in the water just to see... Not
see what's out there.
Not that I'm looking, but just to see if there was any interest.
You just want to see people swipe you. And
Oh, she's nice. She's
Yeah.
nice. Oh, yeah, it'll be quite nice.
it's like being in a shop window, I suppose, seeing how many people stop and take a look at you.
Yeah.
Like what they see.
Yeah. But it's not... It's actually, truthfully, it's not about... I was going to say, it's not about how someone looks. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is, I'm telling the truth. But, no, it's someone who's nice to you.
Oh.
You want a nice person. I think so, do you not?
That's what you want this morning, don't you? You just want kindness.
Kindness.
Yeah.
And a hug. Maybe,
I think that's what you want in life. But that's the thing with the apps, you can't see any of that. You can only
can't
see someone's face.
You don't know what weirdo you're getting on the other end of that. And the other thing is that any time that I see things on the internet, it's all, what are they called?
Like AI and
filters and AI and people. And you look at people and you think, do they actually believe that people think they look like that? Anyway.
And then they look very different in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good.
Well, there is one profile online that's getting matches all over the world for a dating superstar. Our Southwest of England reporter Jeff Moody went to meet this guy.
This is Fredo. Species, Amur leopard. Place of birth, Estonia. Likes going out for dinner, exploring nature, but equally happy with a Netflix and chill.
He is a hit. He's got some likes.
Many people swiping right.
I think they're swiping. Is it right? You swipe is a good one. Yeah, he's definitely got some right swipes.
They're calling it the dating site for animals. You've heard of Grindr and Tinder. Well, this is ZIMS, Zoological Information Management System, to give it its unromantic title. All zoo animals have a profile, 2 million from about 25,000 species. Though according to Dartmoor Zoo boss Benjamin Mee, their profiles can be a bit too reliant on facts, not too many selfies, and the algorithms can be brutal.
You can't have any kind of genetic faults with that animal. They can't be in the slightest bit related to their partner or have any known defects. So all that kind of genetic sifting is done by the stud book, and then through the dating site, the eligible girls are picked, and one of them will be selected. And ideally, it'll be someone. It'll be an animal from nearby, so we don't have to go through the enormous process of bringing him in from Europe, as we did with Fredo.
It's part of a breeding programme run by the zoo with the aim of reintroducing Amur leopards to the wild. There are just 140 of them left in the wild and less than 300 in European zoos. They're critically endangered, so the pressure's on for Fredo to perform on his first date.
Usually there'll be a little bit of a kerfuffle, and usually the female will lie down on her back, and a bit of hissing, and then that's all established.
Right now, Fredo can't accom. The zoo needs to raise funds to build him a love nest where his girlfriend can give birth. As soon as it's up and running, it's game on for a bit of How's Your Father? And it won't be long, the zoo hopes, before we hear the pitter-patter of tiny paws, before Fredo's girlfriend blocks him and we start the whole process again. It's a tough life. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Well, there's the romantic position you want to be in.
Oh.
Yes. Just next.
Just being fed.
Yeah, very good. Lucky old Fredo. We wish him well with all that is ahead. Here's your weather update. We go to Gregory Dewhurst this morning, I'm told.
Hello there. Welcome to your latest GB News weather. I'm Greg Dewhurst. It's going to be mostly cloudy across the UK today. There'll be outbreaks of rain, but it is going to be mild. And we can see the cloud across the whole of the UK this morning, with the exception of northern and eastern Scotland. Some sunshine here, but a cold start, temperatures below freezing. As we move through the day, the cloud and the mild air and the rain pushes its way northeastwards, perhaps a few heavy bursts at times. A few glimmers of brightness from time to time, but most places staying cloudy. And temperatures, well, above average for the time of year, 14, 15 Celsius towards southern areas. Still chilly across far north of Scotland in some bright spells, 6 or 7 degrees. But moving through into the evening time, further cloud and rain pushing northwards. It will turn heavy at times, but there will be some drier interludes. But even in these drier slots, there'll be some drizzle in the winds. And then overnight, some heavier bursts of rain starting to develop, and exceptionally mild, 11 or 12 Celsius as a minimum, higher than where they should be for during the daytime at this point in the year. So a wet start to Thursday across many areas, but particularly across parts of the Midlands, northern England. Through the day, the rain continues here. Further north and west, outbreaks of rain too. A few glimmers of brightness perhaps towards the southeast, and also parts of Northern Ireland, and exceptionally mild for everyone, where we do see some glimmers of sunshine. 15 or 16 Celsius is possible, well above where they should be for the time of year. See you again soon.
Now, don't miss your chance to win £18,000 cash in our Great British Giveaway. Here are all the details you need to enter.
There's still time to become the winner of our Great British Giveaway. There's an incredible £18,000 in cash to be won, totally tax-free cash that you could do whatever you like with. That's like having an extra £1,500 in your bank account each month for a whole year. It could go towards your mortgage or rent, buy monthly treats, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. For another chance to win £18,000 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB02 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 23rd of February. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Just reading about Britain's most romantic care home.
Oh.
Yeah, and there are 9 couples at Anchors, the Manor House in Harrogate, in North Yorkshire. Yeah, that's lovely.
And what, they're all in love with each other?
They're all married. They're all couples. They're all and they're together in the care home, which is very, very nice.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, well, that's true love for you. That's good. Right, still to come, all the reaction to the Champions League matches last night. Paul Coit with that and lots more besides after this.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Francis, Just Stop Oil have in the past broken the law. I remember distinctly the Dartford crossing. That ended up with 2 jailed, I believe, if I remember correctly. Is it ever justified in your view?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I mean, I would have to say yes. I mean, we're trying to preserve my life, your lives, the lives of your family, and it's not just the planet that we're trying to protect, it's the lives of millions of people. And, you know, we know from history that we have to break the law in order to put pressure on the government and to be listened to.
No one would doubt your sincerity in your views. You genuinely believe in what you fight for. But there are others who think differently. For example, there are Islamist extremists who believe that people will go to hell unless they convert to Islam. They will sincerely, perhaps, break the law in order to force people to convert. In their view, they might be saving people's lives for eternity. There might be abortion activists who say that babies are being murdered, and to save their lives, we need to break the law to stop people having abortions. Why do you get to say that your moral conviction is the one that's right, and other people's individual moral conviction are those that are wrong?
So what's really integral to the Just Stop Oil campaign is the fact that it is a non-violent campaign. That's what separates us from the examples that you've just given. We're absolutely dedicated non-violence, both as a tactic and as a principle. So though we might be breaking the law...
If individuals take it upon themselves to break the law for whatever their course is, surely the way that we decide what society wants in general is democratic and within the law.
Well, of course, we know also that protest is absolutely integral to maintaining and upholding a democracy, and in particular, non-violent protest. I mean, I really can't express to you how severe this situation is, and I'm sure you know this.
OK, let's delve into the sport now with Paul, and let's go Champions League last night. Good outing for Man City.
Yes, in Copenhagen. I could go through all the songs, but I don't think I will anymore. We did it all yesterday.
Yeah, when you say that, you want to burst into the wonderful, wonderful Copenhagen.
Salty old girl of the sea, salty old town of the sea, or something like that. But anyway. Have you seen The Little Mermaid?
Yeah.
Have you seen... It's very, very small, isn't it? Have you seen The Little Mermaid in Copenhagen?
Well, the little statue.
Yeah, the little statue. It's a bit bigger than that.
She is quite little.
Very little. So you go out to the docks because, you know, it's another Hans Christian Andersen.
Yeah, yeah.
And The Little Mermaid... I mean, I know The Little Mermaid, but you have to go searching for The Little Mermaid. Little tiny little thing.
Yes.
I was no impressed.
She's on the rocks, isn't she?
She is on the rocks. Well, I think she's better now, but at the time she was.
I always thought that when I came over from Ireland, when I came from the mother country...
Yeah.
Here.
Oh, I've got lipstick on my teeth.
No, you haven't. You've got lipstick on your chin.
Oh, thanks.
There we are. That's it, yeah.
It's quite a lot. How can your lipstick get down there?
It's gone everywhere this morning. It's fine. I never wear red
OK, I've
lipstick.
sorted you out now.
Thanks, Eamonn.
And I remember coming over and Buckingham Palace was smaller than I thought.
Oh, really?
Houses of Parliament were smaller than I thought.
Yeah, because you imagine everything to be huge.
Yes, yes. The only thing that was huge was me. There was,
Yeah. But
anyway, when we were so
anyway, back with Copenhagen. Back with Copenhagen. It was Copenhagen 1, Manchester City 3. I can't see anybody stopping Manchester City in this Champions League. It's always this time of year where things start to kick off for Man City, all around January, February, and then for the rest of the season. Now, Kevin De Bruyne was excellent. Phil Foden and Ellie was particularly enjoyed Phil Foden's hairstyle, don't you? I know you like the hairstyle.
Not great, is it?
It ain't going to change.
But he's a good player.
He is a very good player, but that's his look. But Jack Grealish, you like Jack Grealish?
Another great player.
Another great player, but he went off, though, after 20 minutes. So he was injured. It was his first start for a month. So he's had to go off.
Apparently,
so we'll see how things are with him.
Apparently, Jack Grealish in the City dressing room is the smelliest, or should I put that another way, the most fragrant.
Oh, I can imagine he's fragrant.
Player in the dressing room.
I can imagine that, yeah.
What, in a good way or a bad way?
In a good way, I think, yeah?
Yeah, no, in a good way. In a good way.
In a good way, yeah.
It's
where did you hear that?
No, I heard that in the news. I've read that in the
Oh, right, yeah. Because I thought it might have been like maybe a dressing room nearby. And you're like,
no.
Wafts of underneath. But anyway, second leg is the 6th of March. Interestingly, tonight, at Bayern Munich. Now, normally I wouldn't feature anything about Bayern Munich. They're playing Lazio in Rome. You wouldn't think this is particularly exciting, but
why?
Harry Kane.
Yes.
Of course, Harry Kane has gone over to Bayern Munich, hoping now think that he's going to win some silverware because it didn't happen for him at Spurs. Now, Harry Kane has been brilliant playing for Bayern Munich. He's breaking goal-scoring records left, right and centre. But as a club, they're out of the German Cup. They lost to Byelections 3-0, who were the surprise package in the Bundesliga, who are 5 points clear. Bayern Munich usually just walk the Bundesliga every year, but they could be in trouble.
I don't like that training gear, especially with the long legs. Versions of it.
When you say the long legs, you mean of the shorts or the players?
No, not the shorts. There's full trousers there, leggings.
It's not terribly Bayern, is it, wearing all white? Because usually it's red is their thing. But anyway,
they look like inmates that have escaped from a lunatic asylum or something.
A lunatic asylum.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said it.
Yes. Actually, their nickname is Das Lunatic Asylum, yes. But anyway, 3-0, they lost to Byelections. So the thing is for Harry Kane, the Champions League, that's what he wants more than anything else. It's Lazio, they're playing tonight. It's a long way to go because they're in the last 16. But that's a game which is...
OK, yeah. Leicester in the Championship, go storming.
They're doing great, aren't they? They really are. 2-0 against Sheffield Wednesday yesterday. 12 points clear now in the Championship, so it looks like they're going to go straight back up to the Premier League. I mean, it would just be the biggest disaster in history if they didn't make that. But they've been terrific, so another win for them. So we haven't mentioned much about Leicester in the past. A little bit of cricket. Third test is tomorrow, by the way. A few visa problems. We mentioned this before. Now, this is Shoaib Bashir. He couldn't get in because of his Pakistani heritage. There were problems with his visa getting into India for the first test. So he ended up going to Dubai and then he flew back and then he had to come back to the High Commission here and then got in. Now, there's another one. Now, this is Rian Ahmed. Now, this is probably a problem
That's
with...
another stupid haircut, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. You think so? You think so?
Ellie, what do you think?
Yeah, Ellie, what do you reckon?
Bringing them all out today.
Yeah.
None of these people know how to cut their hair.
That's your classic basin bowl going on there, isn't it?
Yeah.
They look
Put it
like
over the top and
monks
cut
or
around the
something.
outside.
Or priests.
Rian Ahmed didn't have a multi-entry visa, which all the other players had. It's a problem which has been done behind the scenes, so someone is going to be in big trouble over this. He's now got a temporary 2-day visa to get in, but it's all going to be sorted out. But the test is tomorrow. Third test tomorrow.
When I was young and I used to play golf, it was great when Seve brought out a new pullover.
Oh, yes.
or slacks.
Would you wear these Seve slacks?
Yes, definitely. No,
Nice.
He was Puma, I think he was.
Seve, was he, really? I'm just trying to think what Seve was, yeah.
I think it was Puma.
Right.
And then Nick Faldo.
Yeah.
He would have a lot of gear as well.
Yeah.
It's good to follow. So we're now looking forward today to seeing what kit Tiger Woods has.
Very exciting. Well, Tiger's had a deal with Nike for years. It earned him around $500 million, which is not bad money, is it? $500 million. It made Nike considerably more than that. So there's been a split. So the thing is, he's got... Now, this is it here. It's called Sunday Red. And the reason for Sunday Red is that he would always wear red on a Sunday. See the little tiger? You see the little tiger logo there? So that's obviously for Tiger. And it's made out of stripes. And each stripe, there's 15 stripes, and each stripe is one of the majors that he's won.
Oh.
And he hasn't won... I think he's won one in the last 15 years. So anyway, it's with TaylorMade. And that's the new range. Look at that. It's all very flash, isn't it? But I don't know whether kids are going to go out there and say, well, that's the look for me, because you want to be a successful golfer at the time, whereas Tiger is probably in the autumn of his golfing years, to be fair.
Yes, that's a good point, isn't it?
Why does he wear red on a Sunday? Is that a luck thing?
There is reasons for that, yeah.
Well, Sunday's the last day of play. You see, he'll be in the final if he was wearing red in Sunday. So I suppose they associate that with success.
That's true. And Capricorn, he's a Capricorn, and his mother said that red is the Capricorn colour. And when he went to Stanford, which is the university, their colour was red. And he's a big Eamonn Holmes fan, which means Manchester United, which is the other reason he wears red.
All the best teams.
Yeah, and all for Valentine's Day as well.
Very good, my friend. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. With that, we will take a break. What are we doing next?
We're going to be looking at the front pages and the biggest stories of the day in Making the News. We've got Claire Muldoon and Leon Emirali with us this morning. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Ellie.
Lee Anderson's Real World. Fridays from 7 p.m.
Dr. Jane Jones, who's the clinical lead for Care After Combat.
Yep.
Jane, thanks for coming. And just tell me a little bit about your organisation. What do you do?
OK, well, thank you for having me here so we can talk about Care After Combat. So we are an organisation, a charity, who work into the prison system, working with military veterans who've somehow got involved with the justice system and...
So there's quite a high population of ex-servicemen and women in our prisons. Why is that, do you think?
So 2014, the government did a review of who was resident in UK prisons, and what they found were that military veterans are the highest occupational group, and this obviously raises some concerns. Yeah. So the government wanted to do something about that, and so they supported Care After Combat initially, just as a scoping exercise, really, to see if there was any way we could help these men and women actually, understand the problems that led to offending behaviour and go on to lead successful lives.
So what sort of offending behaviour are we talking typically for people that's in prison that's actually served in our armed forces?
Primarily, it's violence.
Yeah.
So that is the highest offence that we work with.
Okay.
But of course, the military, as with everybody else, it's the full range of offending behaviour.
OK, so we're in a pub, Jane, Dr. Jane, and I guess for some people, the odd tip of alcohol is good, a bit of fun of a weekend, relax, let your hair down. But for some people, alcohol is not always their best friend, and I guess that plays a part in some of your veterans that end up inside.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, speaking from my own experience, a good 2/3 of the people I work with have some kind of mental health problem or mental health difficulty, struggling to either adapt into civilian life or with some of the traumas they've experienced during service. People might self-medicate with alcohol to manage some of those thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Let's go through the papers now with Claire Muldoon and Leon Emirali. Very good to see you both. Claire, just it would be remiss of us not to mention Steve Wright.
Of course.
He played such a part in all our lives, the soundtrack of our years there in the background.
You know, I grew up, we used to have, obviously, like a radio and stuff like that in the morning. We'd put it on, and there'd be Steve Wright in the morning, in the breakfast show, Radio 1, because we only had terrestrial TV and, like, analogue radio. So there wasn't much choice. And, of course, But
we were no worse off for it.
No, it's not a criticism. In fact, it was actually better because we knew what we were getting. And Steve Wright. And then when he moved to the afternoon, Mr. Angry from Purley, do you remember him? And Steve Wright devised the first thing of zoo radio when everyone else, he got all these, the producer in, the runners in, and everyone had a really nice familial thing. It's a bit.
He
like
was, Claire,
working with you.
a student of broadcasting, and he studied America a lot and what they were doing on the radio.
Yes.
And he would take those ideas and bring them to the UK.
And it was lovely, and it worked, and it transferred really, really well. And of course, his voice.
Yeah.
He definitely had the face for radio.
Yeah.
But his voice was something else.
I love Leon, how he always did a thing. Thanks very much for getting in touch. And here's one from Leon. Steve, loving the show. Love what you do on it. Wouldn't miss it. He would always plug himself.
Yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, I'm probably a bit too young to remember him in his heyday, but he reminds me a little bit of very much my parents, because he'd always be on when Mum and Dad were pottering around the house or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a great broadcaster does, is they sort of define a moment in time. They define a generation. And I think Steve Wright did that. And when you look at the tributes, you look at the papers and people who've worked with him, I think it's phenomenal, just the things people say about him. And clearly it was testament to what a great man he was. So very sad news indeed.
Right. So what is the Labour Party, moving on to the politics, Leon, what are they saying about Graham Jones now, the second candidate or possible candidate caught up in the anti-Israeli comments? You see, Liam, my point I was trying to make earlier was, does this mean that no one can now level criticism towards Israel or their armed forces without deeming to be anti-Semitic?
Yeah, and that is a really good question, Eamonn, because I think that, you know, there is reason to question Israel's tactics in this war. It is a brutal war. But I think that some of the comments that have certainly been made by Graham Jones, referring to Israel with expletives, was, pretty nasty swear words and nasty language around it. I think there becomes a difference between anti-Semitism and criticism of the Israeli state, because we can't tip around on eggshells and say that actually, what Israel's doing is fine because we're scared of being called anti-Semitic. But Labour clearly still have a problem with people who don't like the Israeli state, people who don't like what's happening there. And I think there is a fine line between anti-Semitism and criticism. So it's been a bad week for Labour.
See, I don't really think it's just across the Labour Party. I think that you nailed it on the head asking that question, because I was one of the first ones to call for a ceasefire at the very beginning of this, and I was troped as and called anti-Semitic, but I was coming from a very pro-life point of view. That was my starting point. I didn't think it was a just war. Hamas are terrorists. But I don't just think it's the Labour Party that are coming out with anti-Israeli speak. And to criticise Israel, you are often is the way that you are labelled anti-Semitic. There's Islamophobia out there, but it doesn't seem to be getting the same column inches.
What do you think this says about Keir Starmer's decision-making? Because he's being criticised, isn't he, for the dithering. It took almost 24 hours for him to act on Ashar Ali. We haven't heard anything here, but there are questions being called about the disciplinary process in the Labour Party and those on the left being treated differently to those on the right of the party.
Yeah, and I think any time Keir Starmer's in front of a TV camera, he's going to say the words, "I've changed the Labour Party, we have changed." But I don't think they have changed, because ultimately you've still got that rump of the left wing of the party, Ellie, as you say. And just as the right wing of the Conservative Party caused problems for Rishi Sunak and the multitude of leaders the Conservative Party have had, the left wing rump of the Labour Party are going to do exactly the same for Keir Starmer. So if he does get into power, I don't think we're going to be sort of a great stable government that everyone's yearning for. I think it's going to be really tricky because it's a divided party, Labour, just as much as the Conservatives are. And Keir Starmer, is he really a strong enough leader to take decisive action? He took several hours to suspend the Rochdale candidate.
Now, here's a story in the Sun, and it's about Harry and Meghan, and the headline is "Oi, Harry and Meghan, give it a crest." And this is a very interesting one, Claire. Going to explain this one to us because it's claimed that they have breached an agreement that they made with the late Queen Elizabeth II, which was not to have a royal coat of arms or not to make use of a royal coat of arms.
And within that, not to make use of the Sussex brand and make that a brand because they're not working royals. So that's the point. But when we look on this website, I did go on it, it's just absolutely atrocious. The absolute diatribe of the about the people. You know when you go on a website and you go about and it comes out with everything about the people? Well, Meghan's is that long.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know,
I'm
shouting, prevaricating, she does this, she does that. It's all about race, it's all about women, it's all about... She just seems perfect. Then go to Harry's. I'm sorry, but who's riding the crest of the wave of the crown? Who is the royal one?
Yeah, she does so much complaining about the royal family and yet hitches her wagon so well and truly to anything to do with them.
But the Americans, you know, there's still a part of America that love the royals, and there's still a part of America that are so dumb that are going to think they are royal and actually just think this is wonderful.
Well, the
next, do you know what? She'll be running for presidency.
Well, I hear Michelle Obama is an interesting one to keep an eye on.
Really?
With that this year.
Well, certainly not Kamala Harris, is it?
I think both of them would probably be a better bet than Joe Biden would be right now.
So here's the question, Claire. Top royal officials now need to decide whether to let this go or whether to challenge it and say, you made this agreement, you can't use a royal crest.
I really hope they do challenge it, but I don't want it reported because I think the royal family have got enough on their plates at the moment, with Kate being out of action at the moment due to her past abdominal surgery and also King Charles's cancer diagnosis.
But without the royal crest, what do they have? How are they relevant?
They've still got her smile and
they're
her
still
skinny
trying to work
legs.
that out, aren't they? They're still trying to work out what they do without the royal family.
It's the royal okey cokey. It's 1 foot in, it's 1 foot out, isn't it? And you've got to come up with either you're in or you're out. And I think that's the problem that they've got. They're trying to straddle these two worlds of being sort of statespeople. Certainly, Meghan sees herself as a stateswoman.
She does.
But also trying to be this glitzy celebrity, hanging out with all the A-listers on the red carpet. So, which is it, Meghan? Which is it? Because you can't have both.
Well, she also lost her surname. Have you noticed that in the website redo? She's just Meghan, just one word.
Meghan Sussex.
She's just
Meghan of Meghan the Sussex, like Meghan the Stallion.
just Meghan as opposed to what?
Meghan Markle. She's no longer...
Oh, she'll not want a Markle.
She's not a full name now. It's just Meghan.
Well, she doesn't speak to anybody in her family anyway, does she?
No, she doesn't.
No.
She doesn't.
So she is, honestly, there's just something, this picture here of her grimacing, just loving it. You can't really see this, but I mean, she just loves it all a bit too much, doesn't she?
Yes. You just want to stick a pin in it.
Oh,
but she's like, Hillary Clinton was the same. Hillary Clinton would walk out onto a stage and suddenly go,
yeah.
And, you know, she's not pointing at anybody or whatever, but she's deliberately looking, hi.
She did it in Graham Norton as well when she came out. Yes.
Yeah. The best thing is if I did that during COVID where there's no one in the audience. But still pointing.
It's just very American, isn't it? Very, very American.
Very cheesy. We don't like it.
Yeah, no.
Right. Okay.
Not on our watch.
Where are we going to now? Liam, what do you want to say next?
Well, we've got a story on the front cover of the Telegraph, which is about ministers snapping up 16,000 rentals for asylum seekers. And that is despite people struggling in the housing crisis right now. Young people in particular struggling with rent, struggling to get on the property ladder. And yet the government effectively is distorting the market by snapping up these rentals for asylum seekers. And, you know, I understand...
So what would happen? What would happen if they all arrive into the country, they come illegally on their... inflatable boats and things, and you say, guys, good to see you. If you just make your way to this car park, we've got 50 tents lined up here, and you put them in tents. Why would there? Would that encourage outrage?
I think it would to a degree, Eamonn. I think, you know, there has to be a level of care that we're giving to all these people that arrive.
We don't have a duty of care to the ex-servicemen that are homeless, or families that are evicted from their properties, or there's lots of homeless children out there in temporary accommodation in this country.
Yeah, well, it's a good point, Claire. I think that what really rankles with this story is it's distorting the market. And also, we'll remember last week, Rishi Sunak came out and said British homes for British workers. Well, this isn't British homes for British workers. This is British homes for asylum seekers, illegal immigrants in some cases as well. So, you know, I think that there is a real problem in this country. And as you say, Claire, homeless people, veterans of the military who are being treated worse than some people who come to this country illegally.
Charity should start at home, for heaven's sake.
Yeah. Especially with rental properties. I mean, you're hearing, especially in the capital, there are 50 people going to view a flat, people paying 3-4 months rent up front just to simply get a roof over their heads. I mean, there is a shortage of rental homes.
Yeah, across the board.
And that's not due to the fact there's not enough landlords. That is down to the fact there's not enough housing stock. There's not enough housing stock because population has increased exponentially.
Yeah.
We can't cope with it.
I'm going to get your opinion, Claire, off the back of this next story, because we're going to talk to Laura Farris. And Laura is the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State at the Home Office and Minister of Justice. Laura, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good, you can hear us loud and clear. Sorry it's raining, but thanks for putting up with this. This is a very, very important message that you've got today, and this is about domestic violence and people who kill through sexual violence. You want how they're punished, you want that made tougher. Tell us more.
Yeah, so we're changing the law today to ensure that people who kill their partner through abusive or dangerous or degrading forms of sexual conduct get tougher sentences than ever before.
I'm sure that's going to be welcomed across the board, that we're going to see tougher sentences in these situations. Is something going to be done as well about the unprecedented backlog in these cases in Britain's courts? Because in order for someone to be sentenced, these cases do need to be heard in a court, and it's an average 2-year wait for rape victims to hear their cases in a court, if they get there at all.
Well, yes, look, we are very focused on the court backlogs, but it is just worth saying one of the reasons, or the reason why we have the serious backlogs is because of COVID, because we took the difficult decision to keep going with jury trials throughout the pandemic, because we saw that as the cornerstone of the right to a fair trial. And if you look, 90% of all criminal cases are actually dealt with in the magistrates' court, where we've almost completely eliminated the backlog. In the Crown Court, yes, there is a backlog, but it's stabilised now, and we're doing everything we can to bring it down. So first, we're well on track to recruiting 1,000 additional judges. The second thing we're doing is we've kept over 24 Nightingale courts. You'll recall they were the emergency courts that were open during the pandemic, so that we have extra capacity in the system. We had 100,000 sitting hours last year. That was the highest on record. And the third thing we're doing is we're giving extra financial support to the solicitors and barristers who appear in these cases, who prosecute and defend. We've given them a 15% increase in their fees. That's up to 144 million extra in the legal aid system. So all of this is designed to improve throughput through the system and to get the backlog down to where it was before the pandemic.
So Laura, what's pushing you to take this sort of action? I thought, you know, I know there has been government action on this before, which seems to be bearing fruit, but obviously this is still an area of concern to you.
Yeah, let me explain why we're doing this. There's been, since I've been an MP, but also in the years leading up to 2019 when I was first elected, there were a number of quite high-profile cases where the victim, in fact always a woman in those cases, was killed by her partner either through, for example, violent beating or quite frequently strangulation, where she would die and he would say at the end, it was all a terrible accident. In fact, she wanted me to do it. And they would end up in some cases with a derisory sentence based on the fact that they hadn't intended to do it and they didn't mean that level of harm. And we actually, when we passed the Domestic Abuse Act in 2021, we created a new offence of non-fatal strangulation that carried a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison. And in one of these cases, the person killed his partner he got 4 years and 8 months. So he got less for fatal strangulation than the law permits for non-fatal strangulation. And I was gravely worried about that. And in fact, this comes from the back of a private member's bill that I introduced when I was a backbencher, because I thought that in this really serious, very gender-specific area of offending, we weren't punishing perpetrators seriously enough. And now they'll get tougher sentences than ever before.
Well, look, good luck to you. Very interesting to hear about that. Anything we can do this end to help, please just get in touch. Laura Farris, lovely talking to you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much indeed.
Bye.
Thank you. Claire, listening to that, domestic violence, we've got a minute left on the programme. What do you think about what she's trying to do there?
What she's trying to do, I applaud, OK, but the stark reality is there's nowhere where the prisons are absolutely full at the moment. Where are they going to put all these extra people who are committing these heinous crimes against women, violent crimes? Where are they going to put them? The prisons are run a lot of the time now by private companies.
Yeah.
So they're lobbying the courts now to put people in beds because that's how they get paid. So we need to look at the business model and the payment of this service and where are they getting the money from now to fund legal aid. You know, there's families that are disparate, there's families that are falling apart and they can't get the legal aid necessary through the courts to enable children and families either to get together, stay together or separate.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Claire, Leon, thank you very much indeed. The guys are going to be back in about 45 minutes' time. Laura Farris and what she's trying to do as regards domestic abusers who kill through particularly sexual violence. Let us know your views on that. GB News at, what is it?
gbviews@gbnews.com.
Here's the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. I'm Greg Dewhurst. It's going to be mostly cloudy across the UK today. There'll be outbreaks of rain, but it is going to be mild. And we can see the cloud across the whole of the UK this morning, with the exception of northern and eastern Scotland. Some sunshine here, but a cold start, temperatures below freezing. As we move through the day, the cloud and the mild air and the rain pushes its way northeastwards, perhaps a few heavy bursts at times. A few glimmers of brightness from time to time, but most places staying cloudy. And temperatures, well, above average for the time of year, 14, 15 Celsius towards southern areas. Still chilly across far north of Scotland in some bright spells, 6 or 7 degrees. But moving through into the evening time, further cloud and rain pushing northwards. It will turn heavy at times, but there will be some drier interludes. But even in these drier slots, there'll be some drizzle in the winds. And then overnight, some heavier bursts of rain starting to develop, and exceptionally mild, 11 or 12 Celsius as a minimum, higher than where they should be for during the daytime at this point in the year. So a wet start to Thursday across many areas, but particularly across parts of the Midlands, northern England. Through the day, the rain continues here. Further north and west, outbreaks of rain too. A few glimmers of brightness perhaps towards the southeast and also parts of Northern Ireland, and exceptionally mild for everyone, where we do see some glimmers of sunshine. 15 or 16 Celsius is possible, well above where they should be for the time of year. See you again soon.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Welcome to the show. Superb stuff, great footage. So you're right in the thick of it there. What's the mood on the ground?
Well, I've left there now. I've actually now come to that EU Council summit that I was talking about. It's still pretty chaotic. The entire city of Brussels has been completely clogged with these tractors, sort of 3 abreast in most of the roads across the city. The people of Brussels aren't particularly happy. I mean, this is sort of reminiscent for some people of the Just Stop Oil protests, you know, people gluing themselves. People are unable to get to hospital appointments, and there's a lot of upset about the destruction that's happening on the streets of Brussels today. But on the other side, there's also the protests, which the farmers are saying that EU green laws simply are not able to fit with what they need to do to keep their businesses going. And just before the protests happened, we saw the European Commission actually make some concessions to the farmers' protests. And this is on the demands that were put on them to set aside somewhere in the region of 5% of their land for regrowing for biodiversity. A lot of the farmers have said that's not possible, and the European Commission has said that they can delay that coming in. So they have won a small concession with these protests.
And Jack, there's a feeling as well, a huge dissatisfaction that the European Union has managed to find 50 billion euros in aid to send to Ukraine, and yet farmers in particular are on the receiving end of net zero targets, taxation on diesel and endless red tape. So many farmers, Jack, saying they're measuring ditches to see if they have to drain them or not. There are minimum requirements on the width of battery hen enclosures, endless red tape. As Jeremy Clarkson pointed out in Clarkson's farm in Britain, they've simply had enough and they're shouting, Ursula von der Leyen, we are here.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the 14th of February. It's Valentine's Day. This is Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Ellie Costello.
Big love to you all. There you are. Don't know if he's feeling the love or not. Labour's in turmoil after another suspension over anti-Semitic remarks. Keir Starmer now playing catch-up to defend his party.
Yes, Keir Starmer has told us time and time again that the Labour Party has changed, but with not one but two parliamentary candidates now suspended, will voters really believe him?
How close are we to a recession? Well, inflation figures are going to be released in just a moment.
They are indeed all eyes on the Office for National Statistics this morning. What is happening to this cost of living crisis? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? We'll soon have the official verdict.
We'll be crossing live to Liam very shortly. Meanwhile, tributes pouring in overnight for the legendary BBC broadcaster Steve Wright, one of the country's most loved radio voices who died yesterday.
From Bibi baptisms to silent discos in cathedrals, we're asking this morning, has the church lost its way? We'll be debating that in about 20 minutes' time.
And in the sport this morning, Manchester City winning Copenhagen. Ben Stokes will get his 100th England cap against India in the third test tomorrow. And today is the 40th anniversary of one of the greatest sporting moments.
Hello there. Cloudy skies for many of us today. Temperatures well above average for the time of year. Find out how high coming up later in the programme.
Paul Coy standing by to tease you with that 40th anniversary story as to what I'm trying to rack my brains, trying to think what it could be. Paul is here though because we all over the newspapers. Paul, look at them today.
Yep.
Radio wonder, much loved DJ who ruled the airwaves. BBC DJ legend Steve Wright dead at 69. It's over all the papers this morning. Big shock, and the reason I talk to you is because, of course, you started out as a DJ.
Yeah. I mean, 30 years on the radio, and I knew Steve, and I've known his producer and so many people that work with him. And I said earlier, the thing is, so many people, when someone passes away that's in the public eye, everybody's going to pay tribute and say how wonderful they were. And this was just one of the greats of radio. Completely turned radio around in the 80s. Influences that came from America. And there was the old Smashy and Nicey style DJ thing that we used to hear on Radio 1. Steve Wright came in, completely changed everything.
Well, he produced everything, didn't he? I mean, that's the thing. It wasn't just that he was making it up as he went along.
Yeah.
This stuff was crafted and it was sliced and spliced together.
Absolutely, and it was put together. It really was a craft. When people would talk about DJs on the radio and you think, oh, you sit down, play a few songs, have a bit of a chat. This man made it into a real craft, and he would spend hours, everything from interviews that were on the show. This is right up to the Radio 2 stuff. And the interviews would take ages because they'd be perfectly edited, any other features that are around, and he had people that were with him, and it really was a true labour of love and a true radio man, because there's so many people that would go from radio then to TV, and then they'd leave radio behind, but... Some would say, oh, well, maybe he wasn't so good for TV, but he was a true radio man. And it's a different job altogether.
A voice that, I don't know what you were like, but I think I speak on behalf of most people, a voice that gave you comfort, that you knew you were getting a quality product when you heard him. He made you feel at ease.
Well, this is what I always pay tribute to you about, and it's one of those things where I think as a broadcaster, you know you've succeeded as a broadcaster when you have listeners that feel as if they know you. The secret about radio is always that one-to-one situation. It's the fact that there's always one person. You hear people on the radio and they go, everyone out there. It's not about everyone. It's about you and the one person that's listening. And if you can connect with that person, then you're a success. And that's what Steve Wright did as well, if not better than anybody else.
I used to feel a tremendous success anytime I was on his show, because suddenly he would say, every interview he did was pre-recorded, right?
Yeah.
So he would record the interviews before he went on live with his programme. And it would be, ladies and gentlemen, Eamonn Holmes here. Eamonn Holmes in the studio. And there was all this applause. And I'm going, where's all this? And there's only him and another guy there. And they're making all the applause. And they're whistling and doing all this sort of thing.
They didn't applaud for everyone, you know. They didn't applaud for anybody else. I tell you, they didn't.
They did.
Eamonn Holmes, but what a guy. It's just so sad, just at the age of 69. He was doing that afternoon show on Radio 2. Nobody could believe that he was taken off that show. And Scott Mills had a very difficult job to try and follow him, but to be taken off of that and to be in your prime as well, I personally think was a mistake. I think so many listeners did. Still on Radio 2, but just a great, great broadcaster, and it's a real loss to radio.
His last show was Sunday Love Songs, which was a Valentine special, which may be very appropriate for him there. Sadly missed. Great man, legend, as the papers say. Well, see you again 15 minutes' time. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, new inflation figures have been released in the past few moments. Inflation remains unchanged at 4% in January, the same as December. Last month, the Bank of England held interest rates at 5.25%. So we're joined now by Liam Halligan, GB News' economics and business editor. And Liam, defying forecasts once again with this figure.
Indeed, most of us thought that inflation would tick up slightly. The general trend is down. Look, inflation was up at 11% back in October 2022. It's now down at 4%. What does that actually mean, that January number, Ellie? It doesn't mean that prices are flat. No way. Everyone who goes to the shops will tell you that. If you're trying to buy a pint of beer, packet of cigarettes or fill up your car or van, it means, Ellie, that in January last month, prices, if you index together all prices, if you put all prices together into one measure, prices on average were 4% higher in January 2024 than they were in January 2023. You mentioned there the Bank of England. Their Monetary Policy Committee next meets on the 21st of March. They're going to decide interest rates. I think when inflation is flatlining and not going down, it's very, very difficult for the Bank of England to lower interest rates. So I think interest rates will stay at 5.25%, the base rate, in March. The first sign that they could possibly come down is April, but more likely May. Of course, mortgage rates are already coming down in anticipation because they reflect future interest rates from the Bank of England. This isn't bad news for the government. Inflation was expected to go up before that by-election tomorrow, those two by-elections in Kingswood and also in Wellingborough. Tomorrow morning, at this time, I'm going to be sitting here, maybe with you, Ellie, maybe not. I don't know what you're... Well, there you go. And tomorrow we're going to be reporting on the GDP numbers. That's the size of the overall economy. It could be, as we go into those by-elections tomorrow morning, that we could have the first UK recession, a non-COVID era UK recession, since 2009. And that won't please the government and it won't please voters.
Right, certainly won't. Liam Halligan, GB News economics and business editor, thank you very much.
Let's get the political reaction to this now. Olivia Utley in Westminster. Right, what do you think of the figures then?
Well, as Liam says, it's good news for the government that inflation hasn't risen. One of Rishi Sunak's 5 goals that he laid out at the beginning of 2023 was to halve inflation. He managed to do that with a little bit of extra time. And the trend, as Liam says, is still going down. Of course, for the government, it's whether these changes in inflation will translate into votes. And personally, I think that seems quite unlikely. Yes, it's good news for people that inflation is now flatlining. And yes, it looks now possible that by the middle of the year, the Bank of England could start to bring the base rate down. The problem, of course, is that there is a really long lag on things like this. So people on fixed-term mortgages will already be feeling the pain of those high interest rates and won't be feeling the joy of them going down until 2, maybe even 5 years' time. So on the economy, the government is definitely moving in the right direction. But are they moving fast enough in the right direction to get people out voting Conservative at the ballot box, both in this month's by-elections and in the general election? My instinct is probably not. That's why the government wants to delay this election for as long as possible. They are hoping that as the cost of living crisis begins to ease, people will start feeling that their lives are getting better and might, just might, be prepared to vote Conservative.
Libya, I need to ask you about the almighty mess that the Labour Party has found themselves in the past day or so. 2 Labour candidates now suspended over alleged anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I mean, this is a real headache for Keir Starmer. Obviously, we had a bizarre 48 hours in politics earlier this week when their candidate for Rochdale, the Labour candidate for Rochdale, Azir Ali, was backed by the Labour Party, vocally backed by plenty of shadow ministers over the weekend. And then by Monday, Keir Starmer was forced to withdraw his support over comments which were deemed to be anti-Semitic. Now, another Labour parliamentary candidate, Graham Jones, who was a Labour MP up until 2019, has been removed from the Labour candidates list over comments that he made at the same meeting as Azir Ali, where Mr Jones said F Israel and made some other suggestions which are deemed to be anti-Semitic. Keir Starmer is going to have a job on his hands over the next weeks and months. There are plenty of backbench Labour MPs and shadow ministers too who have made critical comments of Israel. At what point do those critical comments of Israel actually go over the line into anti-Semitism? That is a decision which Keir Starmer is going to have to be making over and over again in the months coming up to the general election. He promised when he took office that he would clean up the Labour Party from the days of Jeremy Corbyn. He has got to prove both to Labour Party members and to the electorate, of course, that he has done that.
OK, Libya Utley there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed.
The other candidate standing in Rochdale this week will be Azir Ali, Independent, Mark Coleman, Independent, Simon Danczuk, Reform UK, Ian Donaldson, Liberal Democrat, Paul Ellison, Conservative.
George Galloway, the Workers' Party of Britain, Michael Howarth, Independent, William Howarth, Independent, Guy Otten, Green Party, Ravin Rodent, Subordina, Official Monster Raving Looney Party, and David Tully, Independent.
Now, a story that we have been highlighting this week, and every day is a school day. You learn something that you didn't know before. Did you know, Ellie, that where does tea grow? Where is tea from?
I don't know. Hot countries.
Well, well, here in England as well.
Oh, really?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So we may have a shortage of some lines of tea, but one of the nation's favourite drinks, after warnings of risks to supply because of what's going on the Red Sea, we found from the British Retail Consortium that actually Tregothnan, I hope I've got that right, is grown in England. Where exactly in England? We'll find out now from Jonathan Jones, who is the Managing Director of Tregothnan, the first tea to be grown in the UK. Where in the UK, Jonathan?
Cornwall, Eamonn.
I've
brewed you up a breakfast tea.
Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead, my friend.
Oh, that is just what I need. Thank you.
This is good because this tea is called what?
Tregothnan tea. This is a breakfast tea, and although the tea industry does a great job at importing and distributing tea in this country, Winston Churchill said in 1940, we should grow our own tea.
Yes.
We were 70 years late, but we got there in the end.
We got there in the end.
I hope you like it.
Well, Jonathan, I'm glad, because the first thing I thought yesterday, we were panicking about this yesterday, weren't we, this potential shortage of black tea. And you would think self-sufficiency is really important, isn't it? And we should be growing our own tea. And that's exactly what we're doing.
But I just thought you said immediately, where does tea grow? And you said hot countries.
Well, exactly. I didn't think we grew it here.
But think where the best teas of Darjeeling come from, 6,000 feet up in the Himalayas, and that's what Tregothnan has in Cornwall. We've got this true microclimate, foggy and wet, and tea loves it. But we can't grow big volumes, so we're a premium tea.
Yes.
But look,
tea is still a really affordable luxury. So we can top up the nation's teapot. We can never produce a whole country's tea requirement, but we can do a really good, tea and put the Englishness into English tea for the first time.
Yes, I'm looking at your branding and your boxes and things. This looks as if it's like a GB News brand.
It's very GB News
so
friendly.
It does, yeah. So there it is. The tea grown in England.
And
that one
tastes-
exports really well.
This tastes really, really good as well.
Because
so we export it too?
Even to China. So in China, I'm known as the tea man. I haven't done a talk there recently, but we used to go and do tea tastings. I've just come back from Japan, and they love buying into the whole English tea ceremony. They see this as something that we've taken, 400 years of tea drinking, and we've created all these amazing things, and that's what's exporting back to Asia.
Now, something else I learned this morning, knowing that you were coming on, is where most of our tea comes from. And most of our tea comes from...
Kenya.
Yeah. So, what's the problem?
Well,
what's
it still has to get through the Red Sea, doesn't it? So,
does it still?
It comes up that east coast of Africa, so it is a problem. But, look, there's loads of tea around. The world record amount of tea will be grown this year, and we're not going to run out. But, the supermarkets and the tea companies will do a great job at managing supplies, and people should drink more. You in Northern Ireland, I think, drink 4.5... we're 4.5 cups a day, you're 5, so you're leading the way on this, Eamonn.
Except, yeah, true. And you know what? We're just having black tea here.
Do you want some milk?
No. But it tastes very nice.
No, it's lovely.
I'm not a great tea drinker.
Yeah,
I have
go
to
on.
say, but
See, I like to think myself nothing like you, Jonathan, but I am a bit of a tea connoisseur.
Pleased to hear
I'd
it.
want, specific types of tea bag. You know how people get. That's like
I do.
How do you feel about what you're tasting here, the Tregothnan
Stunning.
brand?
Really, really nice.
You need to read the weekly tea column, the world's first tea column. We're starting to take tea seriously in this country because actually we spend less on tea in this country than the Germans and the Americans. We've got to sort that out.
Now, got to ask you, how do you make the perfect cup of tea? Because it's an art form, isn't it? But it's controversial.
It is controversial, and look, there's an expression, isn't there? Whatever is your cup of tea isn't wrong. But the top tip is generally better the quality of the tea, lower the temperature, and give it longer.
A long brew.
Long brew, always a good thing, but don't scald it. Now, in London, we've had to make it a little bit strong because your water's not the best. You've got very hard water. But where you've got soft water, you can speed things up a bit, but always lower the temperature. People scald their tea.
Listen, mate, you raise a very good point there, which will apply to every fast food outlet there is, and my wife, who they give you tea and it just burns the esophagus off you. Why? I mean, I agree with you. I think, what is the point of giving you something that is going to scald you? So you're saying it doesn't have to be boiling hot.
Better not boiling. So tea is really an art form. When you see how it's made, it's an incredible drink. It's made from the camellia bush. And Tregothnan, by the way, grew the first camellias over 200 years ago, but not for tea, just for ornamental purposes. And when you see a day and a half to make the tea, surely people can wait 5 minutes. And look what the coffee industry has taught us. We all go into a coffee shop now and wait for ages. So, in fact, they've done us a favour, because now we need to wait for a good cup of tea.
No, it's certainly worth the wait. Do you worry about British people moving into this coffee shop culture? I mean, it was in the papers recently that people drink coffee more in this country now than they do
They're scare
tea.
stories, Ellie. Of course, we're a nation of tea drinkers. It's not changing.
It'll never change.
Well, I think the shortage story this week then is a scare story as well, put out by the supermarkets, whatever, because according to you, Jonathan, you're saying there shouldn't be any adverse effect on supplies. We've got plenty of it.
And even if prices go up a little bit, that's good for the tea industry because it's such an affordable luxury, and the supermarkets need to put their prices up a bit. And I bet your viewers wouldn't have any idea how much an average cup of tea costs, but it's such an incredibly affordable...
How much an average cup of tea?
A few pence, Eamonn, come on.
Yeah.
Right, OK.
How much would a box be of your tea?
Those are about £9.
Oh, so very fancy.
You don't have to worry.
This is the good stuff.
You don't have to worry about that. There we are. You can have that. Jonathan, cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So, a long brew. You heard it
indeed.
here first from the tea expert.
Yeah. Let's bring you up to date with other news that have been brewing, news stories that have been brewing on this Wednesday morning.
Over 100 women who froze their eggs and embryos in a leading London clinic have been told they may have been damaged due to a fault in the freezing process. It's believed many of the patients had since received cancer treatment, meaning freezing their eggs was possibly their only chance at fertility.
Violence by the public against shop workers rose by 50% last year. According to the British Retail Consortium, reports that incidents of shoplifting are also at record highs has caused the industry to call the situation a spiralling crisis.
The Court of Appeal has said convictions linked to the Horizon Post Office scandal are being dealt with speedily, thanks to what Britain calls highest judge has called a fast track to justice. 42-year-old Jacqueline Falcon, a victim of the scandal, was the latest to be cleared after a 30-minute hearing. Just top myself up here. Very good tea.
There you go.
We should have this every day, I think.
You should have it every day.
Nice little teapot.
Nice pot.
Yeah, lovely. Let us know if you're having your tea this morning.
Yes, let's sup our tea and look at the weather forecast from Greg.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. I'm Greg Dewhurst. It's going to be mostly cloudy across the UK today. There'll be outbreaks of rain, but it is going to be mild. And we can see the cloud across the whole of the UK this morning, with the exception of northern and eastern Scotland. Some sunshine here, but a cold start, temperatures below freezing. As we move through the day, the cloud and the mild air and the rain pushes its way northeastwards, perhaps a few heavy bursts at times. A few glimmers of brightness from time to time, but most places staying cloudy. And temperatures, well, above average for the time of year, 14, 15 Celsius towards southern areas. Still chilly across far north of Scotland in some bright spells, 6 or 7 degrees. But moving through into the evening time, further cloud and rain pushing northwards. It will turn heavy at times, but there will be some drier interludes. But even in these drier slots, there'll be some drizzle in the winds. And then overnight, some heavier bursts of rain starting to develop, and exceptionally mild, 11 or 12 Celsius as a minimum, higher than where they should be for during the daytime at this point in the year. So a wet start to Thursday across many areas, but particularly across parts of the Midlands, northern England. Through the day, the rain continues here. Further north and west, outbreaks of rain too. A few glimmers of brightness perhaps towards the southeast and also parts of Northern Ireland, and exceptionally mild for everyone, where we do see some glimmers of sunshine. 15 or 16 Celsius is possible, well above where they should be for the time of year. See you again soon.
Now, on this Valentine's Day, I mean, you're in love now. You'll find the tea.
I'm happy, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's the Great British Giveaway from us to you with lots of love and £18,000 in cash. Have a go.
Time is ticking on your chance to win £18,000 in tax-free cash. That's like having an extra £1,500 each month for the next year. Listen to the moment we told Phil from West Yorkshire he'd won our last Great British Giveaway.
Hello? Phil, I've got some really good news for you. You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
You're joking. That's brilliant news.
For another chance to win £18,000 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB02 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 23rd of February. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Right. The church today is Ash Wednesday. Would you be getting ashes at the start of Lent? We're going to be talking about the role of church in society. Yeah, we certainly are. From Bibby baptism to silent discos in Canterbury Cathedral, we'll be asking this morning, has the church lost its way? Okay, so in the meantime, go in peace to love and serve the Lord, and we'll be back after this.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has made her much-anticipated appearance before the Scottish COVID inquiry today. It comes after allegations emerged that she deleted key pandemic WhatsApp messages, used the pandemic to push her own political agenda. But let's just cast our mind back, shall we, to August 2021, when Sturgeon was asked if she'd hand over all her WhatsApps to the inquiry. Here we go.
I think if you understand statutory public inquiries, you would know that even if I wasn't prepared to give that assurance, which for the avoidance of doubt I am, then I wouldn't have the ability. This will be a judge-led statutory public inquiry.
Which, for the avoidance of doubt, I am. OK. Well, you weren't, were you? But fast forward to today, and she was much less forthcoming.
WhatsApp messages between yourself and Mr Yusuf and Ms Lloyd were produced by you. Where did you get them?
They were provided to me through the Scottish Government.
But did you delete them?
Yes.
Did you consider yourself, against that background and your considerable ministerial experience, to be precisely the right First Minister for the job?
No, that's not how I would have thought of it at all. There's a large part of me wishes that I hadn't been.
All right, then. I'm joined now by Tory MP Lee Anderson. Lee, are those just crocodile tears?
Well, it looks like crocodile tears to me, Patrick. I mean, first we had the missing camper van. Nobody knows where that is. Now we've got this nonsense. We've got these burner phones, dodgy £5 phones from wherever they bought them from, WhatsApp messages going missing. It all looks a little bit dodgy to me. I mean, she's bleating on there, she's crying on screen. This is not cutting no ice. You know, it's crocodile tears. It makes you wonder what the SNPs are all about, Patrick. It looks... I mean, the people that have burner phones, let's be clear, people that have these dodgy phones where you can't trace them and disappearing WhatsApp messages, these are normally criminals, these are drug dealers. And you know what? These SNPs are no better than criminals.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Church. What do you go to church for? What do you get out of it? And what about all these refugees who are joining up and becoming Christian to stop themselves being deported? So 40 men on the Bibi Stockholm have converted to Christianity to strengthen their chances of staying in the UK.
Well, it comes in the same week that a silent disco was held at Canterbury Cathedral, a move that's been slammed by many in the church as inappropriate.
So is that sacrilege? What do you think about that? So the church is facing backlashes like that. We are asking if it's lost its way, if that's what it's supposed to be about. To discuss this, we've got the author James Wundhausen and columnist at the Catholic Universe, Caroline Farrow. Caroline, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a very sad day when we hear of 40 people who are attending a church service and are saying this is a terrible thing. They must only be doing this for asylum, and we are treating them with suspicion. I mean, Christianity, when you talk about the purpose of the church is to evangelize, to draw people into a much closer relationship with Jesus Christ. So I think we have to be quite careful about scapegoating Christian churches when we hear of people converting. And I think there's been a lot of discussion recently, but specifically about immigration, about how Christians, or people are sort of faking a conversion to Christianity in order to get asylum. And I think actually, rather than looking at Christianity as a particular scapegoat for that, we need to be asking questions of the state authorities, of the Home Office, who have put down religion as a category which makes somebody eligible to convert, but don't seem to have the religious literacy or the investigative or the desire to sort of investigate fully. What does it mean when somebody says they've converted to Christianity? Are they attending regular scripture classes? Are they actually, importantly and crucially, going to church or going to mass in the Catholic Church after they've undergone baptism. You know, it shouldn't just be a case of dip and stamp. So the onus needs to be more, I think, on the Home Office and on the state authorities. But I don't think Christianity should be apologising.
Caroline, say the Home Office listen to you and they say, Caroline, you're absolutely right. This shouldn't be a criteria as to whether you are given British citizenship or not. And then, Caroline, the numbers fall off. The people looking to convert declines drastically. Would you not rather have them in the gang, in the club, than lose them altogether?
Basically, we want people in the church who want to be in the church and have, a genuine desire. So it's not simply about, bums on seats per se. It's about having genuine converts, or genuine worshippers among us. And also, I need to make the point that Christianity is not the only faith that has a tradition of hospitality, of welcoming the stranger, of seeing the innate human dignity and worth of everyone. Judaism also has a similar culture. That's why we talk about our Judeo-Christian roots. It's not just words. It's that, these two cultures, we do have, this sense of welcoming the stranger. And it would be, terrible if that were lost. But I think the caveat I would say to that is, although asylum is very much a sort of Judeo-Christian concept, actually asylum does come with a caveat, with an acceptance that whoever is coming to be among us takes on the culture of the hosts, so it isn't just. And I think the wider problem that we have in the UK at the moment is that we are welcoming in so many people that we don't have the infrastructure to cope with. And also there's a sort of gulf between their belief system
Caroline,
and ours.
you would make a brilliant preacher. James is sitting there. He's just waiting to get a word in. So you've heard her sermon, James. What would you say in response?
Well, I think one must distinguish between Christians, who I generally like, and Christ, although I'm an atheist, and the church. I'm not sure it's fair to say the church ever had found its way, and it's certainly lost it now. It's not scapegoating the church to say that it does seem to have worked with lawyers and the Home Office to allow individuals like Abdul Zaidi, who was responsible for that acid attack, into the country. This isn't scapegoating, this is pure realism. And may I remind Caroline that, Jesus was not against scapegoating the moneylenders and people who were clearly evil, like Abdul Zaidi clearly was. Now, I'm amazed that she says in her efforts to, Caroline, you want to shrug off responsibility of the church for what it's done and say, well, look, the Home Office should do everything. Of course, it's the Home Office's legal duty. But are you seriously suggesting that it should scrutinise immigrants after they've passed their test? Are you really favouring that amount of surveillance once they've done that? And it just really won't do to say that any criticism of the church's policy is unfair. This is a church that supported Paula Vanel's, who's implicated in the Horizon scandal, that has had a long history of different kinds of abuse, that very rarely stands up for the Christians who are scapegoated. She's right about that, around the world in places like India, Iraq and elsewhere. And, I think its record is pretty abysmal, and its willingness to use 25 bishops.
Let's get a response now from Caroline, James.
Well, I think, first and foremost, I think you're talking more about the Church of England than sort of Christianity as a whole. And I think perhaps there certainly is a school of thought that the Church of England has lost its way. But certainly in, other Christian traditions like Catholicism, like in baptism, we have, a more kind of robust procedure, for want of a better word. We don't just say to somebody, oh, turn up, be baptized. I think you might be right, James, in that there is a problem with political activists, clerics, but activist clerics are not necessarily the fault of the entire institution. And when you talk about the suspect involved in the acid attack, this is a guy who had, a history of sex attacks, or he certainly had at least one sex attack on women. And there are lots of wider safeguarding questions to be asked here about what contact did he have with authorities. I still maintain that actually if the Home Office wants to factor in Christianity or religious conversion as to whether or not they grant someone asylum, then they need more robust and rigorous procedure, whether that's offering somebody a temporary visa or temporary asylum and then coming back to that specific church a few years later and saying, now, have you actually seen this person since they were baptized? How involved are they in the life of the church? I take on board what you're saying about Porter Vernels and the Horizon scandal. Yeah, that's quite wrong. What happened there. It's also, I condemn in strongest terms the silent discos at Canterbury Cathedral.
Really? Why?
What's wrong with that?
Why?
Wrong with that?
Because Canterbury Cathedral or any cathedral is a sacred space. This was the site of St Thomas a Becket's martyrdom. This is a place where we believe, God is present, where we come to worship God. And in fact, what we're doing when we have a silent disco, it's all about worshipping ourselves.
Guys, got to leave it there. Thank you. That is the word of the Lord. Thank you both. And go forward in peace and love and everything else on this the start of Lent. Thank you very much, guys.
And Valentine's Day, yes.
Well done.
Happy Valentine's Day to you both. And Ash Wednesday as well, actually. I should probably say both.
Holiness.
And Ash Wednesday, I put that in there.
Who was Valentine? Who was he?
Saint of Love, surely.
He was the what?
Surely the Saint of Love, St Valentine, must be.
Well, I thought that was Barry White was the Saint of Love. The Walrus of Love. Anyway. But anyway.
I'm going to find out for you.
Right, OK, you find out who's St Valentine.
Oh, Courtly Love, the saint of courtly love.
He wasn't really... Courtney Love's not his daughter, is she?
Courtly Love.
Oh, right, no.
He's also the patron saint of epilepsy and beekeepers.
Yeah.
But
we know why he was made the patron saint of love.
I'll find out for you, shall I?
You get on the ball
I'll be
there.
on that.
We've got the sport, we've got Paul Coit next.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
When you listen to Nigel Farage's assessment there, do you feel that maybe this is as good as it was going to get, given that we had the pandemic and it was inevitably always going to be a bit of a mixed bag?
Well, I think it's a bit of a poor excuse from Nigel there that they haven't done it properly. The facts are, Nigel, that it's not worked. It's not going to work. Yes, we will rejoin. I mean, are we better off for it? Are they...
Can I jump in there, Charlie? We're going to rejoin under which government? Because Labour aren't going to do that, unless you don't think...
But I mean, it's going to be unavoidable not to join, because I think it's getting worse and worse for us. I mean, let me just say this. Are the NHS better because we're out of Europe? No, they're not, because they're not employing more staff. Is the building trade better off? No. Is travelling abroad or to the EU or staying in the EU, are we better off? No. Are we better off because foods rise because of the EU? No. Are we better off with imports and export? No, because they're taking longer. The overall result is that we're not better off. The killer point here is 57% of the public will now vote to remain. 33% would leave. Surely that's the telling point.
It depends on the pollster, Charlie, because we were talking to a very good pollster earlier who said there's no enthusiasm for any change in a year. Maybe 10 years, they might be thinking about it.
Belinda de Lucia, let's bring you in. I'm sure you want to react to what Charlie said.
I mean, who would have thought that the UK wanting to run its own affairs and making our politicians more accountable would be so revolutionary? EU Parliament voted a majority to get rid of the vetoes, the last remaining scraps of democracy that the EU had. Now, luckily for EU citizens at the moment, it means a treaty change to actually go forward. But that is the mood. The ever closer union. We have dodged a federalised globalist, international, power-gobbling, anti-democratic organisation. And that's worth more than a few trade and travel perks for a few wealthy people in this country.
Hear, hear. Belinda DeLucy, Charlie Mullins, great to see you both.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, very good news. We've got the sport coming your way. Very bad news. You have no time, so don't be waffling on.
Okay.
The thing is, straight away, we've St. Valentine, just breaking news as to who St. Valentine was and why he's associated with love.
Yes, he was a priest during Roman times, and apparently he was marrying couples and doing Christian weddings for them.
And then they got killed.
And then he was martyred on the 14th of February, and that's why today is his saint day. But it was all about marriage and bringing couples together.
There you are.
Very sweet.
That's
good story.
Eros is not. That's nothing to do with Eros, then.
Eros is eroticism.
Is it?
Isn't it? Eros.
Because, you know, in Piccadilly Circus...
Yes, the bull.
That is actually the Shaftesbury Memorial to Lord Shaftesbury, so it's got actually nothing to do with love. But apparently, yeah,
But, you know, as somebody once asked, what's love? What's love got to do with it?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, what is love anyway? Can anybody love anyone anyway?
Good one, mate. Very good. Very good retort. Right. Any other rubbish to talk to us
Yeah,
about?
I've got a little bit. I've got a game for you. So 84, so it's the 40th anniversary today of one of the great sporting occasions. Can you tell me what it is?
Right. So has the time of year, it's specific to the time of year.
Yeah, so we're thinking February 14th, 1984.
So it's not Wimbledon, it's not going to be golf, it's not going to be...
Football, surely.
No,
it's not football.
I'm thinking Winter Olympics. Winter Olympics?
Very good.
Right, Winter Olympics?
Yes.
So what would they...
You
So
know
that's
this,
be one
don't
of the skaters, dancers, or...
Skiers.
Skiers.
Not skiers. On your knees, don't they? We were doing a bit of that, weren't they? On the knees.
What's the name? Torvill and Dean.
Torvill and Christopher Dean.
And a lot of...
Bolero. It was a lot of... People did say it was a lot of bolero going on, actually. It's a fair comment.
That was 40 years ago.
That's them more up to date. That's them when they recreated it. Did you know?
What?
I was the voice of Torvill and Dean.
No.
On the tours. Yeah.
On the tours?
Yeah. I interviewed them quite a few years. It was about 20 years ago, and they said, would you be the voice of the church? So I had to go, ladies and gentlemen, Jane Torvill and Christopher... It's Leonard Elshkaya and Irina Horoskaya. And they had all... Yeah, so I did that. That was...
I had to introduce Bill Clinton.
Oh, did you?
Belfast, and I said,
is that top line
Ladies and gentlemen, please would you welcome the 42nd President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton.
Nice.
That's a bit of... I was practising that all day.
He didn't skate out, though, did he?
No, he didn't skate out.
Yeah. So anyway, Torvill and also they're going on tour next year. They're saying,
well, they must be like 95 each.
Well, they're like 65 and 66. I don't know whether they can still do the bolero, where they have like a cushion on the ice, though, when they start on the knees and then do all the whirly stuff. But yeah, 1984, Sarajevo. It was in the city of Sarajevo where they won that title. So 40 years ago to the day.
Have you ever ice skated?
I have done a little bit of ice skating.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
I've ice skated with you on breakfast. Well, you were sat here, I was on the ice.
So it was so memorable.
Did you?
It was so
I'm
memorable.
glad you remembered that one.
It's just top of my list there. Did you really?
It was the last Winter Olympics. I went out and did some amateur skating. I wasn't very good at it. We were in a conga line and I just held on to the lady in front.
I tell you, though, if you're on one of those lines, though, and they start spinning round, when you're on the outside one...
You can go fling it. I was right in the middle.
Up to 350 miles an hour, you know. You have to be very, very careful. Yeah.
Well, look, thank you very much for going 350 miles an hour between those sports stories, which there only was one.
And it was 40 years ago.
And it was 40 years ago. But that's a good one to remember, mate. 40th anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
And the Bolero.
And then you got trumped by Bill Clinton.
I did. So you're going to be back at 8:20. Thank you.
I will be.
Thank you very much indeed.
Do stay with us. Up next, we're going to be telling you why the Home Office and the auto cue, if we can just bring it up, because I couldn't tell you.
Why the Home
Office could start paying celebrities to make TikToks for them. That's with Claire Muldoon and Leon Emerald.
We'll do that. I mean, we're not very good, but we're cheap. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Let's watch
Nothing
that
we can't
next.
do.
OK.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Lots of people have different ideas, but principally a conservative approach to getting growth is to reduce taxes so that people, ordinary people and businesses can spend more of their own money to invest and grow the economy.
So the theory is that you cut taxes and that then pumps more money into the economy.
Exactly right.
Growth.
And then people, it's not government that are creating wealth. It's individuals, businessmen, companies that create wealth. It's the private sector that creates wealth, that the public sector then taxes and spends.
I get the theory, but one of the criticisms of you, and I think one of the criticisms actually of all political parties, is they appear to be incapable of cutting government spending.
That's the key. I mean, and I think when I look back, is that we should have had a credible plan to reduce the increase in spending. Now, that's often a difficult concept to explain.
But it's in line with inflation, etc.
That's all right. So when you're slowing the increase, it means, 1 year you spend £100 and the next year you spend maybe £101 as opposed to going up to £110. So the actual level isn't going down, but you're slowing the increase. And that's very much what I tried to do. And actually, looking back, the one thing I wish I'd done, was to present a credible spending plan at the same time as the tax cuts that we announced.
You had a go, it didn't work out for whatever reason, and that analysis will go on for some years to come. We have Jeremy Hunt there as Chancellor now, hinting quite strongly now there won't be any tax cuts, but the truth of it is, under 14 years of Conservatives, for a variety of reasons, the tax burden has risen.
That's right.
To the highest since the Attlee government, way back in
80 years,
1951, whatever it is.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Stories making the news, Leon Emirali and Claire Muldoon with those today. Leon, the one that's got me licking my lips here, TikTok stars.
Yeah.
Celebrities, but would we classify as celebrities?
Well, you certainly would.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
The Home Office is to pay people like me to make TikTok videos to urge migrants not to cross the channel. OK, who do you think will be signing up for that one?
Well, would you do it, Eamonn? Would you do it? Because I'm sure
I think it's too controversial.
Yeah, I think it is for a lot of people. But they're effectively asking influencers who are big in Albania to talk to Albanian individuals.
I don't think I've any presence in Albania.
There's not Albanian Eamonn Holmes fan club, are we sure?
No.
But I think it's actually not a bad idea. I think if it's a way of trying to stop and deter people from coming to this country illegally, I don't think it's a bad idea. I believe in the power of communication to change and influence
So you're going to
people.
get Kylie Minogue or whatever.
Well, the Albanian Kylie Minogue.
Yeah, the Albanian Kylie
but she'd
Minogue.
be known worldwide.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the idea. Isn't
Yeah, I mean, it'll be anyone who's got a presence in Albania. There's not a massive budget. I'm not sure they could afford Kylie Minogue. They've got a budget of £30,000. So it'll probably be people that we've never heard of, but people who've got a loyal following, perhaps. So it's all about stopping the boats, deterring people from coming to this country illegally, sort of for them to promote the idea that if they come to this country, they could end up going to Rwanda. So it's all part of the government's stop the boats policy. I think it's a good idea.
You think it's a good idea?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so do I, actually, because sometimes it's so blindingly obvious, you just wonder why someone hasn't done that before. Whether you need to pay celebs to be involved in it, I don't know or not. You could still have the message, but as we were saying, if it is someone from the pop world or whatever that they recognise, and they're saying, look, guys, this seems like a good idea. You'll be asked to do this. You'll be tempted to do this. Here's the reality. And you show pictures of storms and crossings and people dying and the reality of a lot of this thing. And then Rwanda at the end of it. Would it make people think, no, we'll turn around or we'll try elsewhere?
Yeah.
So, worth a shot.
Is there a risk, though, that they won't actually target the market, that are actually using the business model and the criminal slavery model of getting people from Albania here illegally? Will they really target that market?
Well, I don't know, Claire, because I think people will, you know, people use TikTok now. It's where they get their news. It's where they consume.
Really?
So I think
know it's big in advertising.
Especially young people, who tends to be the people who come to this country illegally on boats. It is young men. And if TikTok is where they're getting their news, where they're getting their information, it's propaganda, I guess, but it could work.
We're also seeing on TikTok the migrants themselves who are posting their journey, almost glamorising themselves on these small boats. I mean, they're literally videoing as they come into
That's
to
just
Dover.
awful.
So it would be good almost to see the other side of that, as Eamonn says, to see the reality of what those journeys may mean. And also the money that can be made on TikTok through advertising, you know, things like deodorant and hair care products, all that sort of thing. Well, this could be money well spent if it saves a life.
No, I agree with the concept of it. I just hope it targets the right market in Albania. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people that will do it for nothing, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Leon, let's talk about shop workers. It's pretty bad. You know, when you sign up to work in a store, you don't sign up for violence and abuse. You don't sign up for that when you work for the NHS either or whatever. But it seems to be everybody's a target nowadays.
It makes me sad when I go into shops now and I see people wearing a body camera. Just as a shop assistant, probably a young kid who's in their first job on a Saturday job, and they're wearing it because they're worried they're going to get abused and they can capture that if they need to. What a sorry state of affairs that it's come to that. And I'm not sure what's behind this rise, because that wasn't there when I was a youngster. That's very much a recent phenomenon. So
desperation.
I think it's anger
perhaps.
and entitlement as well. You know, a lot of people go into shops and they're just so angry all the time. Us as a society, we're a very divided nation. We're very angry and we just want an escape.
But Claire, are you not going to be angry if you're constantly bombarded with adverts that say you can have this car, you can have these clothes, you can have these pair of trainers, you can go to this concert, you can do all those things, and they're dangled in front of you in these shops. But you can't afford any of these things. You can't have part of that.
No, I understand it. However, it's just, it doesn't make it right. When Leon and I were chatting in the green room there, and my first job was in Marks and Spencer's as a shop assistant.
Can I just point out, not an easy job to get. You're a bit of creme de la creme.
Yeah, you are.
I am.
That's true.
So I remember
16.
when we were young, I mean, to get...
It's aspirational.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
What department were you in?
Oh, I was in customer service. Can you believe it?
Very good.
Yes.
Yes. I worked for Primark and I got Department 3, ladies' underwear.
You requested that.
What? I didn't request.
Yes,
it was very embarrassing. I'm from a family only of boys. The only knickers I ever saw in my life were my
your
mother's.
mums? Oh.
And, went to all
I bet they
boys'
were
schools
slightly
and things.
different.
These were slightly different.
Yes.
But the trouble was, Claire, they were 29p each for these white panties, whatever, right? Is that the right word? Can I just say...
We're having this conversation.
So I'm telling you, there's a reason for this, right? So basically, Leon, to get a refund in anything, you had to have
Check
a receipt.
the gusset.
You had to have a receipt. And I was the training manager, and I would say, the girl would ring the bell at the till, and the shop was packed, and I'd say, yes, what is it? And she said, this woman wants a receipt for these. And I'm saying, well, has she got a receipt? She said, yes, she's got a receipt. And I said, yeah. Well, she says they're not worn. And I'll go, and she holds it up and she says, do these look as if they're not worn to you? That was true.
And hence is the birth of the sticky label on the gusset.
Dear.
Disgusting.
Well, OK, so that's envy, and it's not acceptable, that sort of violence against shop workers there. What about stores now, though, Leon? They do employ their own security people. They've got a couple of people that'll take these guys away and press charges.
Yeah, they do, but I think also a lot of people get away with it because the police are, overstretched and frankly, not dealing with minor shoplifting. So, you know, I think they feel as if they can get away with it, so they do.
Well, that's the thing about minor shoplifting. It's something under £200 now. It's not dealt with by police, is it? So you're effectively decriminalising theft under £200, which is why we're seeing, I think, so much of it in our stores at the moment, because you can essentially steal up to that.
Yeah, I mean, getting back to Claire's point, I mean, it's one thing, we could all ask the question, Claire, what forces someone to steal and deceive people like that? That's one thing. But then you go the step further. What makes someone assault a shop worker?
I know. I know. It's just absolutely awful. Not even shop workers.
Drink, drugs?
All of the above. All of the above. Just a very fractured society, fractured home lives. Complete dissent in society. No one with any focus. No one with any purpose in life. People are falling into despair.
Yeah.
And it's not right.
Well, could I just say about despair, Claire, there's a story about the supply of tea and that we could run out of it. Now, we have had a man that grows his own tea.
We have,
this
lovely
is the
Jonathan.
Tea, and he grows it in...
Cornwall,
yeah.
Tregothnan, yeah.
And he says basically there is no shortage of it because we get most of it from Kenya, not China.
Exactly.
Or India.
And, you know, you wonder why, you know, the Houthis and the lack of tea. But then what's the spiralling? As did COVID. The run to buy loo rolls. People are now running to buy their Tetley or their Yorkshire or whatever. Guys, get a grip.
You live.
You know, you will live. You will still survive. And there is enough, because we are told by the United Kingdom Tea and Infusions Association, which represents 90% of supplies sold at UK shops, said the nation's favourite brands will be available.
OK. Thank goodness for that. On that good news, we'll say goodbye to you two. See you again in 45 minutes.
Now it's time for an update on your weather with Greg Dewhurst.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. I'm Greg Dewhurst. It's going to be mostly cloudy across the UK today. There'll be outbreaks of rain, but it is going to be mild. And we can see the cloud across the whole of the UK this morning, with the exception of northern and eastern Scotland. Some sunshine here, but a cold start, temperatures below freezing. As we move through the day, the cloud and the mild air and the rain pushes its way northeastwards, perhaps a few heavy bursts at times. A few glimmers of brightness from time to time, but most places staying cloudy. And temperatures, well, above average for the time of year, 14, 15 Celsius towards southern areas. Still chilly across far north of Scotland in some bright spells, 6 or 7 degrees. But moving through into the evening time, further cloud and rain pushing northwards. It will turn heavy at times, but there will be some drier interludes. But even in these drier slots, there'll be some drizzle in the winds. And then overnight, some heavier bursts of rain starting to develop, and exceptionally mild, 11 or 12 Celsius as a minimum, higher than where they should be for during the daytime at this point in the year. So a wet start to Thursday across many areas, but particularly across parts of the Midlands, northern England. Through the day, the rain continues here. Further north and west, outbreaks of rain too. A few glimmers of brightness perhaps towards the southeast, and also parts of Northern Ireland, and exceptionally mild for everyone, where we do see some glimmers of sunshine. 15 or 16 Celsius is possible, well above where they should be for the time of year. See you again soon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sunday mornings from 9:30.
Questions to be answered, and there seemed to be a significant amount, does once again point its way to a public inquiry into exactly what happened in this case. Starmer's called for that. Would you call for that too?
I certainly think that, first of all, there's one thing that's happening now. The NHS have to order an independent inquiry. That's been done. So they've got to look at all the whys and wherefores of what happened with this man. If it appears that we're not getting sufficient depth and breadth to this, then I think having an inquiry with all the powers that brings would be extremely advantageous. What I don't want is some long-winded inquiry that will take years, by which time other people will have been put at risk and maybe other lives have lost. We know what the problems are here, Camilla. Law's been passed on this. This is all about making sure on the ground we implement the highest degree of monitoring in order to ensure the safety of the public.
Has care in the community failed? I mean, it seems oxymoronic to say that it's care in the community in this case. We know that the number of psychiatric care beds has been slashed from 52,000 back in 2001 to 24,000 now. I've anecdotally, because I wrote my column about this in The Telegraph yesterday, received quite a lot of correspondence from people saying the situation with care in the community is dire. People aren't being adequately monitored. Was it a mistake to close down all of those mental institutions?
I don't think we should go back to those days when we had those appalling institutions where we just lock people away and forget about them, and not just mental health people, but autistic people and disabled people. Horrific way to treat individuals, and you know I campaign on that a lot.
I know.
However, I think if we move into a more community-based approach, which can be really good for many, many people who are on the spectrum and on that scale of mental health, we have to remember there will be a small but significant number who will continue to pose a danger. And that's why monitoring is so important.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
8 o'clock, a time approaching very quickly on this Wednesday, the 14th of February, which, if you're not aware, is St. Valentine's Day. So great love to one and all. This is Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Ellie Costello, who are always in love. Unlike Labour. Labour is not in love, Labour is in turmoil. Why?
Another suspension over anti-Semitic remarks. Sir Keir Starmer now playing catch-up to defend his party.
Yes, Keir Starmer has told us time and time again that the Labour Party has changed since the reign of Jeremy Corbyn. But with two parliamentary candidates now suspended, can voters really believe him?
Inflation holds at 4%, so what does that mean for the economy?
Inflation indeed in January was flat, 4%, the same as in December. The cost of living crisis, it's not getting worse, but it's not getting any better either. Will the Bank of England cut interest rates anytime soon?
Tributes have poured in overnight for legendary BBC broadcaster Steve Wright, one of the country's most loved radio voices. We'll be speaking to Radio 1 DJ Liz Kershaw in just a moment.
Love is in the air, but has the cost of Valentine's Day ruined your romance? We'll be talking about that very shortly.
Always the romance of sport. In the sport this morning, Man City beat not-so-wonderful Copenhagen. Ben Stokes is set for his 100th England cap tomorrow in the third test in India, and we'll play our sporting birthday quiz.
Hello there. Cloudy skies for many of us today. Temperatures well above average for the time of year. Find out how high coming up later in the programme.
Well, look, just within the last hour, we hear that inflation stays unchanged at 4% in January. Let's find out what that's due to and where it seems to be going. Liam Halligan, our business and economics editor, with us now in the studio. Liam, what do you make of this?
We thought inflation would go up slightly. It's stayed the same at 4%. That means prices in January were 4% on average higher than in January 2023. That's still double the Bank of England's 2% target. And that means, Eamonn, when those Monetary Policy Committee economists at the Bank of England meet, there's 9 of them, including the Governor, they're going to meet next on March the 21st. I don't think they're going to cut interest rates. It's hard for them to cut interest rates when inflation isn't coming down. This is relatively good news for the government because we thought inflation would go up a little bit today. Why? Because of that Ofgem energy price cap, the regulation of gas and electricity prices. The gas and electricity companies were allowed to raise prices a bit. The government stipulated that, and that has fed into this inflation number. Interestingly, transport costs are actually lower in January this year than they were last year. So there is some sign of light at the end of the tunnel. As I say, the cost of living crisis, it's still really difficult for a lot of people, but it is getting easier.
But still double the rate it should be.
Still double the rate it should be. Let's just have a look at some of the numbers here. I've got them up on a graphic for you. You can see that inflation in January was 4%, and then we can see the next line. There's more information there. That's largely because of higher gas and electricity prices, those Ofgem energy price cap increases that I mentioned. Food inflation, that was up at almost 20% this time last year, and it's now down at 7%. So food prices in January, it's roughly 7% higher than the same month last year. And there's those lower transport costs that I mentioned. The government is trying to say this isn't all bad news. Here's Jeremy Hunt. He's saying that inflation doesn't fall in a straight line, and that's very much true. It never falls in a perfect straight line, but the plan's working. We've made huge progress in bringing inflation down from 11%. Indeed, in October 2022, it was 11%. And the Bank of England forecast is that it will fall to around 2% in a matter of months. Actually, the Bank of England are saying it's going to fall to 2%, their target, in December. So quite a few months. I actually think it will fall faster than that. This isn't great news, but it isn't bad news either. Tomorrow we got those GDP numbers, the overall size of the economy, that controversially are being released at 7 a.m. in the morning, just as voters go to the polls in those 2 crucial by-elections.
Gosh, yeah, interesting. Thank you very much, Liam. Certainly falling like flies. Oh, no, we're going to show Jeremy Hunt. I was going to bore everybody now, right? So the Chancellor, he'll come and say, this is exactly what we planned. Cue Jeremy Hunt.
Inflation never falls in a straight line. And although it's welcome that it hasn't gone up today, it is still double the target level of 2%. And we're not going to be able to relieve pressure on families until we hit that target and the Bank of England feels able to reduce interest rates. So this is a time to stick to a plan that is clearly working, but we need to make sure that we really get to that end point of inflation at 2%.
We learned yesterday that wage growth in the economy is far stronger than the Bank of England is prepared to accept. What's your message to companies as they make pay awards this year?
It's clearly welcome that in a cost of living crisis, wages are going up by faster than inflation. But what we want is for that to happen on a sustained basis. And that means getting inflation lower than it is today. It's still too high at 4%. We need it to be back down at 2%. And then we can be confident that as wages grow, it won't be inflationary. And that's why we need to stick to our plan.
So companies need to show restraint?
Well, what we need to do is to make sure that we don't do anything that compromises the battle against inflation. It's still too high at 4%. We need it to be down at 2%. Then interest rates can come down and we won't have to worry about the pressure from wage rises.
Shoplifting in the UK is at record levels. What does that tell you, Chancellor, about the cost of living crisis?
Well, I don't know if there's a connection between shoplifting levels and the economic situation, but it is wrong. And overall, non-computer crime has halved since 2010. We've got 20,000 more police officers, and we will crack down on all types of crime.
Inflation is lodged, I'm busting, last question, I promise. Inflation is lodged at 4% currently, and the Bank of England is worried about the persistence of inflation. Many households across the UK are keen to see interest rate cuts. Do you think they're going to have to be patient?
Of course, it is welcome that inflation has fallen much faster than most people predicted, And indeed, the forecasters say it will hit the target in the early summer. That is good news, but we should remember it is still too high. There is still a lot of pressure on families. We need to stick to the plan that's in place that is working. We need to get inflation down to that target level. Then we'll see interest rates fall and we'll see the pressure on families ease.
Chancellor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
As Jeremy Hunt reacting to the news that inflation has held.
Thank you very much indeed.
Now, the Labour Party are in turmoil today as Sir Keir Starmer is forced to drop a second parliamentary candidate due to alleged anti-Semitic comments.
Graham Jones used an expletive to refer to Israel and said British people who fight in the Israeli Defence Force should be locked up.
Well, he was due to stand for Labour in his former seat at Hyndburn at the general election later this year. Well, let's bring in our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, for reaction to this news. So 2 Labour candidates now suspended over alleged anti-Semitism and some criticism this morning, Olivia, of Labour, saying it's now indistinguishable from the Corbyn years.
Well, exactly. This is a real headache for Keir Starmer. When he came to office, the first thing he promised to do before he got into what policies he would implement as Prime Minister, he promised that he would clean up the Labour Party. And by and large, people from all points on the political spectrum within Westminster think he's done a pretty good job. Jeremy Corbyn is no longer a Labour MP, nor is Diane Abbott, and there are quite a lot of Labour councillors who have been struck off for being anti-Semitic and too much sort of the Corbyn mould, if you like. This throws a spanner into the works. On Monday, Keir Starmer was forced to withdraw support for the Rochdale by-election candidate Azir Ali after it was revealed that he made these comments about Israel which were deemed to be anti-Semitic. And now Keir Starmer has had to drop another candidate, Graham Jones, from the parliamentary candidates list for the general election because of these comments he made about Israel. Now, the issue for Keir Starmer is that this could be the tip of the iceberg. There are plenty of Labour councillors, Labour backbench MPs who have made contentious comments about Israel, and some of them were at the meeting where these comments by Jones and Ali were made. What happens to them? Are they disciplined too? And also, Keir Starmer has got to work out where he draws the line between legitimate criticism, robust criticism of the Israeli regime and of Netanyahu, and where that spills over into anti-Semitism. That is going to be something which Keir Starmer will be scratching his head about over the next few days and weeks, because he really, really cannot afford, in the run-up to this general election, to be losing any more parliamentary candidates, particularly if those parliamentary candidates have been accused of anti-Semitism.
OK, Olivia Utley there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed. Well, now that we've mentioned one candidate, we do need to mention the other candidates standing in the Rochdale by-election. They are Azir Ali, Independent, Mark Coleman, Independent, Simon Danshuk, Reform UK, Ian Donaldson, Liberal Democrat, Paul Ellison, Conservative, George Galloway, the Workers' Party of Britain, Michael Haworth, Independent, William Haworth, Independent, Guy Otten, Green Party, Ravin Rodent-Subortner, Official Monster Raving Loony Party, David Tully, Independent.
Steve Wright, let's now talk about Steve Wright, legendary radio broadcaster, one of the most familiar voices that you will have heard in your lifetime. He's died at the age of 69. Tributes flowing in overnight from numerous stars and fellow DJs, including Jeremy Vine, Rylan, Tony Blackburn. They've all been posted online. Let's go to Liz Kershaw, who joins us now. Big shock, this, Liz.
It is. It's always awful when you hear somebody's died, but it was so unexpected out of the blue last night, wasn't it? He was still working. So, yeah, shock. Very sad.
What do you see? I mean, you know, obviously that shock for any of us who are listeners, but you were a colleague and, you know, as a pro, as a fellow DJ, how would you pay tribute to him?
Well, I was a listener before I worked with him, but I was a listener when I worked with him as well, Eamonn. So first of all, as a member of the audience, I'd just like to say how hilarious his programme was. I just remember a really hot summer, 1989. I was single, I was living in London, and I used to go to the park because I didn't have a garden or anything and lie with my headphones on, and I must have looked ridiculous because I'd be just rolling around on the grass laughing. All the characters. Steve Wright in the afternoon was so revolutionary in this country as far as radio was concerned. And the reason that as a professional, he had something unique was because he ignored the management. When you arrived at Radio 1, you were given a manual of how to behave and what to say and how to present a programme. And there were two rules. There was a poster on the wall that said, one thought, one link, which was just keep it concise. I think that's what it meant. We weren't always sure. And the other one was that you have to imagine that you're sitting there with your headphones on, speaking to a microphone to just one person, that you are having a relationship with just one listener. And that's the magic of radio. It makes it personal. Well, he just said rubbish, and he threw it out, and he'd spent time in the States, and he'd heard Zoo Radio, and he filled his studio with characters and members of staff and mates, as you know, and it was just a party. And I think he really tapped into what people want from radio, that especially now. Then you couldn't stream, but you could listen to CDs or albums. But he knew that the magic of radio was community, and people joined it for company. And every afternoon, millions of people, double figures of millions of people, would tune in, whether they were working on a building site, whether they were driving, whether they were at home with kids. It was the go-to place. He had the whole of the UK brought together and laughing every afternoon because he did it his way.
And the longer he was there, the more people loved him because, Liz, as you will know, people love familiarity. Bosses often don't. Is it a bit embarrassing for the BBC today after, cutting his programming, cutting his hours down, that they then have to pay tribute to the genius of this man?
Well, it makes me feel sick. It's shabby. It's hypocritical. They basically, after 40 years or so, they just dumped him. New management were going to refresh the schedule, and they treat people like tins of beans on a shelf. Oh, that's out of life. We're going to push it aside and put something in. There was a public outcry, and I doubt that there was any follow-up, any pastoral care, any support for him. He didn't need money. He'd been one of the highest paid people on air. But, I wonder how they considered it affected him. There are some people, as you will know, for whom fame and attention and being in the buzz of it is their oxygen. And he was one of those. It was absolutely his life. I was given advice on my first day at Radio 1 in 1987. Remember, it's not who you are, it's just what you do. But there are other characters, and I would include Steve in that, who were so focused and driven, and it's their life, that it is who they are. And to take it away from somebody and then come back 15 months later when they're dead and say, we will miss Steve. He was such a professional. He was brilliant. He was the best. I just don't know how they can say that. And also, are they going to apologise to the public? Because since his last show on the 30th of September 2022, and I know there have been other changes, Ken Bruce has gone, but the station, Radio 2, has lost 1.2 million listeners, which is 8% of its audience. So people know what they like. Nobody's got a job for life. Things have to change. But I think there are serious questions to be answered. And I think I had no contact with Steve for, a few years now, but I would only imagine that it was a real shock to find he didn't have something to do and go into 5 days a week and thrill the nation every day. What a contrast.
Love talking to you, love listening to you. You know your trade, you know your skill, and that was in tribute to your friend and colleague, Steve Wright, who died yesterday at the age of 69. Thanks, Elizabeth. We'll see you here soon. Thank you very much.
It was
indeed.
the best. Thanks, Eamonn.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. She really does know what she's talking about, and I could talk to her all day, because we're talking about a technical thing, the way he presented a programme, which only, as Ruth says to me, you're just boring everybody now. But when you can see how he crafted his show, it's, you know, for people who do it, they know. When you know, you know. Now, tonight, see, Ellie, if you and I were together... No, well, no, no, but anyway...
If we were spending the
evening together tonight, I would indulge you with a meal, perhaps, a takeaway.
Would you? What would you make me? You're not making me anything?
No, nothing. Oh. Not making you anything. I'd phone up the Just Eat, the Deliveroo, the Uber Eats, whatever it happens to be, and get you anything you want.
Well, we could be in for a spot of trouble, I think.
Not tonight. Not tonight, Josephine, I'll tell you that.
No.
So, there's trouble. There's a strike. Theo Chakamba is there, breaking strike lines to tell us what it's all about. Well, Theo, what's the problem?
Yes, well, this evening between 5 and 10 o'clock, thousands of delivery riders will be taking strike action, and this is being spearheaded by a Delivery Job UK, a grassroots organisation which says the working conditions and pay simply isn't good enough in this country. Now, today, as you've been discussing, is Valentine's Day. It's the top 3, according to retail experts, in terms of sales after Mother's Day and Christmas Day. Now, I've been speaking to a delivery rider in McDonald's just a few moments ago. He came to the UK from Sudan, and he said he came here to make a living, but he says it simply isn't good enough, particularly as he works for Just Eat and Deliveroo as well. And he showed me some of his rides and the minimum pay that he gets, which range from £2.80 and £4.45. And he says a particular issue that he's concerned about is tips as well. So, for example, when an order is placed, he says the company takes around 80% of the total of what a customer has paid, and then he's only left with around £2.40 to £4.80, depending on the delivery. So this is something he says I simply can't live with this kind of pay, considering the living wage, national living wage in London is around £10.42. So it's considerably less than what he would be looking to earn. But from 5 o'clock this evening, those of you, those couples who are looking to particularly order food or presents, which might be more convenient to them as they'll be at work during the day, they may have some issues when they're looking to do that between 5 and 10 o'clock, as thousands are set to strike in the city and across the country.
Theo, thank you very much indeed. Though, in fairness, Ellie, I think you may have a problem with me if I was to, on this special night of romance, order you a McDonald's.
Yeah, I would have a problem with that. You need to be in the kitchen making me a good steak or something.
Well, so the issue is that there will be a shortage of delivery drivers tonight, and also Theo brought up a very interesting point of tipping there as well. I always tip, but I think to myself, it's so expensive anyway, and I think, and a tip on top of that?
Yeah.
Now, it's not that I have anything against the driver, but I sort of think, is it really my responsibility to be paying the driver? Should the company not be paying them? And then I hear talk, Ellie, that the companies take a slice of the tip as well.
Very big slice, 80%. Up to 80%. Yes, which is one of the reasons why they're going out on strike today.
Yeah, really hard. I also always feel sorry for the delivery driver who's on a bicycle and they're having to pedal to you as well.
In the wind and the rain.
In the wind and the rain. But there's no doubt we're spoiled when you look at it, and you used to have to go out and collect a takeaway. Now you don't have to do that anymore. So it's brought to us. There has to be a price for that, I suppose. So what's your minimum tip? What should it be? Has to be at least £2, £3 maybe. But the bill for the delivery food is immense.
Yeah.
It's far too high.
You pay a premium, don't you?
You do.
You know, the delivery fees and all that sort of thing, but then they're not getting the tips. So do let us know what you think of that story. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Yeah, you might think more about it when you are looking for the romantic dinner tonight and it doesn't arrive.
No.
Okay.
Here's
your
weather.
weather.
Get in the kitchen.
What?
Get in the kitchen, that's what I say.
A picture of what? Your
Get in
bill
the
not
kitchen.
arriving?
Yeah. Get in the kitchen. Not get a picture.
Get in the kitchen.
Get in the kitchen.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Put your apron on. Make your own dinner.
Put my hearing aid in. Hello, Greg Dewhurst.
Hello there. Welcome to your latest GB News weather. I'm Greg Dewhurst. It's going to be mostly cloudy across the UK today. There'll be outbreaks of rain, but it is going to be mild. And we can see the cloud across the whole of the UK this morning, with the exception of northern and eastern Scotland. Some sunshine here, but a cold start, temperatures below freezing. As we move through the day, the cloud and the mild air and the rain pushes its way northeastwards, perhaps a few heavy bursts at times. A few glimmers of brightness from time to time, but most places staying cloudy. And temperatures, well, above average for the time of year, 14, 15 Celsius towards southern areas. Still chilly across far north of Scotland in some bright spells, 6 or 7 degrees. But moving through into the evening time, further cloud and rain pushing northwards. It will turn heavy at times, but there will be some drier interludes. But even in these drier slots, there'll be some drizzle in the winds. And then overnight, some heavier bursts of rain starting to develop, and exceptionally mild, 11 or 12 Celsius as a minimum, higher than where they should be for during the daytime at this point in the year. So a wet start to Thursday across many areas, but particularly across parts of the Midlands, northern England. Through the day, the rain continues here. Further north and west, outbreaks of rain too. A few glimmers of brightness perhaps towards the southeast, and also parts of Northern Ireland, and exceptionally mild for everyone, where we do see some glimmers of sunshine. 15 or 16 Celsius is possible, well above where they should be for the time of year. See you again soon.
Thank you, Greg. Time for the Great British Giveaway. If you don't know about it, you should. £18,000 in tax-free cash. So make sure you don't miss out. And here's how you could make that money all yours.
Time is ticking on your chance to win £18,000 in tax-free cash. That's like having an extra £1,500 each month for the next year. Listen to the moment we told Phil from West Yorkshire he'd won our last Great British Giveaway.
Hello? Phil, I've got some really good news for you. You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
You're joking. That's brilliant news.
For another chance to win £18,000 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB02 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 23rd of February. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Please do stay with us, because we're going to be talking about whether Valentine's Day has lost its spark because of the price of everything, the cost of living. Would that quell your ardour after this?
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Elon Musk has announced that the first patients to receive a groundbreaking brain implant from Neuralink is recovering well.
This is all a bit odd. The product, called telepathy, uses a robot to surgically place a computer chip in a region of the brain that controls movement.
Yes, Elon Musk says that the first goal is to enable people to control a phone or a computer just by thinking. He says that initial tests show promising signs of brain activity, meaning that patients with paralysis could one day overcome their conditions.
Not sure about this one. Joining us to discuss this breakthrough is applied futurist Tom Wright. Tom, this sounds, well, slightly terrifying.
I certainly think a lot of people will be thinking this is something out of a sci-fi horror rather than reality. But this is a technology that's been a long time coming. We've been developing direct brain-computer interfaces for a long time, mostly for the sort of therapeutic reasons that are the initial goal, at least, of Elon Musk's Neuralink, to allow people who are perhaps quadriplegic to have direct control via their brains of initially a smartphone and maybe ultimately artificial limbs or a wheelchair.
It does seem fascinating how quickly this technology is moving on. I saw demonstrations perhaps a year or two ago of people playing a very simple Pong game just by thinking, moving sort of one line on a screen up and down. This seems like potentially there has been a breakthrough that means far more complex things can be controlled just by thinking.
Well, there's lots of different aspects to this technology. The initial attempts to interface with the brain used actually quite thick prongs almost that went into the brain, and they were quite solid, and so if the brain moved, they could potentially cause damage.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together. For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Love is in the air, everywhere I look around.
Love is in the air.
Love is in the air. And this year, you are predicted to spend £50 on Valentine's Day. So that's £50 you will spend on your partner, and £50 your partner will spend on you.
Yeah. Well, I hope so anyway. But that is quite expensive, isn't it? It is pricing lots of people out of love. As we're asking this morning, are the pennies in our pockets worth the price of love on Valentine's Day? Well, let's speak now to London's life coach, Nina Alk, and psychotherapist, Emiliana Silvestri, who joins us on the line. Really good to see you
See,
both.
Emiliana, I would say, can you really put a price on love? I mean, if love is going to deliver, and by that I mean... if love is going to come to fruition, that's what I mean. I mean, you don't want to put a price on it, do you? Doesn't matter.
Absolutely not.
No. So, do you think it is the ardor is being quelled because of money?
Who are you asking, Eamonn?
I'm asking you.
Okay. No, I don't think Valentine's Day has got anything to do with money. I think it's really easy for us to try and cancel Valentine's Day next, but actually, there's an epidemic of spending in this country. I've spoken to quite a few friends in the past sort of 6 weeks, since early January, that are trying to stop spending. It's an addiction. It's nothing to do with Valentine's Day. People like to press buy it now because it makes them feel good momentarily. I don't see why Valentine's Day is getting the blame. And also, today, if people want to connect with each other, they don't need to spend any money. You can get a good playlist together and put some, candles on and have a good evening. It doesn't have to cost anything. You can cook together. So
I agree
the
with
pressure
you.
that everybody's talking about, you've got to spend £50 on each other. Well, I haven't spent anything on my partner, and he hasn't spent anything on me, and we've already had a gorgeous morning. So,
enough detail. We'll bring in. Well done, you. Anyway, that's all I'll say. Let's go to Nina and find out. Well, you don't agree with Emiliana, though.
Not really. I think love shouldn't have a price on it, and unfortunately, all the emphasis on one day. Whereas I think small, continuous gifts of love throughout the year make that partner feel more secure too.
Yes.
And not only that. Commercialised, I think there's £1.5 billion about to be made today. And the people don't have the money. So social media plays a huge impact where people compare and say, well, look what he's done for his partner. My partner's not doing it for me. There must be something wrong with me. And there's a lot of single people out there. There's a lot of over 30-year-old women, men out there that feel today very lonely.
Yes, but then
there's a lot of married people very lonely too today. Probably more lonely married people today than there are single people. And what's lovely about Valentine's Day is that it's an opportunity for shy people to perhaps go to somebody they've always had a crush on. So it's quite a nice opportunity for people who wouldn't normally have the confidence to make a move. So I really agree with you that social media is far more likely to be causing the problem of the spending epidemic, where people are comparing themselves to others rather than a beautiful beautiful day that's about love. And I think it's really sad that we keep trying to ban stuff and cancel things, especially when it's to do with love. And I think what would be far smarter for us is to not make this about money. We don't have to buy into the marketing and advertising. We can rise above that and understand that relationships are a little bit more than just gifts.
Nina, have we lost the real meaning of all of this? Should we make it more about love and not about the commercial thing that it's become?
But that's how you demonstrate the love, isn't it? That's how you're showing it. I mean, think of the excitement of all of this. Think of when you were at school and the first time somebody wrote "Roses are red, violets are blue, I love Miss Ellie," and or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the magic of
The
all
romance,
of that, the romance of all that, particularly people who are starting out, Nina, and you know, it's fresh and it's lovely and it's nice to do. But I agree with what you're saying as well, that there are different stages of a relationship, and that love should manifest itself in a certain way. But what Emiliana is saying is that we've got an excuse to express our love today.
Yeah, but I just think the pressure that's been put upon people to buy today shouldn't be put upon them, because...
Like buying flowers, knowing...
Well, the cost of flowers today is going to be a lot more than the cost of flowers yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's not
annoying.
That's really just something that commercialised people, so the rich get richer, basically. That's how it works. And if you can't afford it, then what do you do? And it is about the cost today. That's what we're discussing today, because I believe, as I said, love should have a cost on it. But unfortunately, a lot of young people will go over and beyond to try and impress that person, because it's their first initial. They're learning about love. They're trying to make that impression upon that person. So they become in debt. And men tend to want to pay for the meal because it's the gentlemanly thing to do. It's very romantic, like yourself. And often they can't afford it. So what do? If they're in a position that they can't afford it, how does that affect them? And mentally, it really affects them, because they feel inadequate as a male to fulfil his role. Whereas, yes, love shouldn't cost anything. They should be able to have a takeout today, although most of the takeouts are on strike.
They are, yeah. So what is your solution? Not to do anything, or...?
As I said, I feel that you can celebrate it, but it shouldn't cost as much as you feel it should cost. You feel that you have to go out for a meal. You feel that you should have to buy flowers and elaborate gifts, whereas I feel it should be continually celebrated.
Well, Emiliana has been off to a cracking start this morning.
You said we had a lovely morning. You took the rest.
So are you going to go out for a meal tonight?
Me? No. I don't want to go out in the evenings. I'm a tired mum. But
Yeah.
my point is, I actually think Nina and I are on a similar page. But my point is, who? Nina's saying people have got to spend. Said who? Said who? You don't have to buy into it. You don't have to have social media. You don't have to go shopping today. And if you're in a relationship where somebody expects to be receiving gifts, then I would question the authenticity of that relationship and the actual connection that they've got. You get far more connection holding your partner's hand than you ever would pressing buy it now on a heart-shaped candle.
Yeah. Point
I think
taken.
the emphasis is very much on today. If we were told Valentine's Day was on the 1st of January, we would be celebrating it then. It's not something that we've chosen to celebrate today. It's something that's been programmed into our mindset to celebrate today. So maybe we could get everyone else to take the pressure off themselves, firstly, because it's all about you, not what everybody else thinks.
Who's putting the pressure on?
Well, society. I mean, I think if your partner says to you, "Oh, don't bother, don't be getting me anything," or whatever, and if you were brave or stupid enough to do that, you might find a different reaction as the day.
On the day, yeah, there is a pressure on the day.
Yeah.
There is.
Don't be bothering getting me anything. Don't
never pay any heed to that.
No, you're all right. Don't bother.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
why didn't you get me anything?
Guys, thank you. We'll leave it at love all there. Thank you very much indeed, Nina and Emiliana. Very entertaining, and glad that Emiliana's day has given her a big smile. So
She's had a lovely morning, hasn't she?
And it's just after 8:30 as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, she's doing very well. Well, do stay with us. It's a lovely morning here too, but for different reasons, I think. Paul Coit is going to be back with the latest sports. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Ellie.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World. Fridays from 7 p.m.
Dr. Jane Jones, who's the clinical lead for Care After Combat.
Yeah.
Jane, thanks for coming. And just tell me a little bit about your organisation. What do you do?
OK, well, thank you for having me here so we can talk about Care After Combat. So we are an organisation, a charity, who work into the prison system, working with military veterans who've somehow got involved with the justice system and...
So there's quite a high population of ex-servicemen and women in our prisons. Why is that, do you think?
So 2014, the government did a review of who was resident in UK prisons, and what they found were that military veterans are the highest occupational group, and this obviously raises some concerns. So the government wanted to do something about that, and so they supported Care After Combat initially, just as a scoping exercise, really, to see if there was any way we could help these men and women actually, you know, understand the problems that led to offending behaviour and go on to lead successful lives.
So what sort of offending behaviour are we talking typically for people that's in prison that's actually served in our armed forces?
Primarily, it's violence.
Yeah.
So that is the highest offence that we work with.
Okay.
But of course, the military, as with everybody else, it's the full range of offending behaviour.
OK, so we're in a pub, Jane, Dr. Jane, and I guess for some people, you know, the odd tip of alcohol is good, a bit of fun of a weekend, relax, let your hair down. But for some people, alcohol is not always their best friend, and I guess that plays a part in some of your veterans that end up inside.
Absolutely. So, speaking from my own experience, a good 2/3 of the people I work with have some kind of mental health problem or mental health difficulty, struggling to either adapt into civilian life or with some of the traumas they've experienced during service. People might self-medicate with alcohol to manage some of those thoughts and feelings.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Paul's daughter, Ruby, is producing and directing Mary Poppins at her school tonight.
She is.
Yeah, that's your night, so it's your Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Step in time, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Feed the birds.
Oh,
It's all going to be
makes me
that.
cry.
Yeah.
That was the bit I remember falling asleep when I was 5 and when I went to see Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
And that old doll comes out on the steps of St Paul's Cathedral, and I can remember just nodding off.
Really? Were you not moved as a child?
Moved
While
to sleep,
bird woman
that's what it was.
comes?
No, I don't mind step in time and all that, but feed the birds.
See, every time I walk past St Paul's Cathedral, I look at the step. Because it's the step on the side where the old lady would, So maybe if I could dress up as an old woman selling maybe at like £5 a bag, Mary Poppins.
Make a fortune.
No,
Just a thought.
Today, celebrity birthdays today, or sporting birthdays.
You want to do the sporting birthdays?
Sporting birthdays,
OK,
yes.
I've got a couple of sporting birthdays for you. Have a look at these.
Right.
See how you get on with these.
Right.
2 footballing, well, one a legend, another one a very well-known footballer. Let's go with the first one. There he is.
Do you know Kevin Keegan, Ellie?
I don't.
Kevin Keegan, look at him there.
Again.
In his pomp, playing there for Liverpool. Kevin Keegan went 1977 and went off to play for Hamburg, didn't he?
Amazing player.
70.
Yeah.
And then they replaced Keegan at Liverpool with...
Kenny Dalglish.
They did, King Kenny.
Number 7.
It's funny the way things worked out.
How old? Hold on, we're going to see how old do you think
I think 73.
Kevin is today? 73 for Kevin Keegan.
Yeah.
I'd say she's pretty... I think that's a good one. Yeah, he has to be in his 70s. How old is he? 74?
Ellie is correct.
God, I'm good.
73.
Oh, well done.
Can I tell you how I worked that one out? I said, well, those shorts and that hair is giving me 70s. Then I just did 20 plus 50.
Honestly,
threw in a few extras.
Genius.
73.
Do you remember when he was in the Superstars? Do you remember he fell off the bike? And it was on the side. This is when they used to have the Superstars on TV, and you'd have the greatest sporting talent around the world. Brian Jack's doing by the way, that's me doing the. You don't even want to. So anyway, so then when Kevin Keegan, we was going round on his bike, came off, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh.
Scarred, lost all skin down his back.
Yeah.
Got on the bike, continued. What a hero. Could you imagine any sports stars doing superstars these days?
No.
Never in a million years. You want to go for the other one?
Yeah, who right? Okay.
Go for another one. We've got another one here. Slightly younger.
Oh, that's...
Christian Andersen.
No, it's not. It's Ericsson.
Christian
Eriksen from Man U, yeah.
Yeah, Dane.
Well, he has to be in his 30s.
What do you think?
38.
38.
No, he's not 38.
You've over
no, he'd be retired then. You've overplayed that one. I would say, I think he's older than 30.
Yeah,
I think he... Well, you know what? I think he's already 31, so I think he's touching 32.
Oh, my goodness me. You're right.
Am I?
Yeah, 32.
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
God, I feel as if we should have one more then to go in the middle there as the play. We'll have to do the final tomorrow.
Yeah, we need it.
Very good.
You mean you haven't got one?
I haven't got a third one, no. There's only two. I thought they're never going to get both of them. I didn't think I'd have to go to a playoff.
Well, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to the both of you.
Good luck to Ruby with Mary Poppins.
Yes.
Any extra tickets going?
Well, I'll tell you what, I just don't want you falling asleep in the middle of Feed the Birds. There we go. Feed the Birds. There's a man fast asleep in the back.
I could play the old woman.
Well, there you go. Well, can you imagine, like a cameo? Yeah. Well, it runs for the next 3 nights. I'm going to sort you out for
Here
tickets.
with a hairy chin. Eamonn was playing the old woman.
Everybody's waiting for the old bird woman comes.
Talking about old birds, Claire Muldoon and Leon Raleigh back with Making the News right after this. Please don't go away.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Ken, do you find the Union flag, the Union Jack, divisive?
In some situation, but as Simon quite clearly stated, and I agree with everything that he says in regards that there's situation when people use it for ulterior motive to cause fear, alarm and distress. We saw that with the far right when they came up to saying protecting the Churchill statues and things of that nature. But largely on the large whole, even I wave the St. George's flag on a sporting occasion. And I don't see anything wrong in raising the Union Jack or the St. George's flag so long as the intention is correct. And as he says, Mr. Brockhurst, he served for the country and he should have every right to be proud of what he's done and the way that he wants to display it.
All right, Simon, what do you make of this kind of, I would argue it as like student social media-based politics, where you get these pillocks from the Green Party or whatever saying, oh, it's divisive and I can't believe it. It will be legal in this country to do... Do those people need to get out more? I was on the streets of Stratford earlier on, an incredibly diverse place, speaking to a massive range of people right across different age demographics. I couldn't find a single sausage who said to me that they thought that this guy from the Green Party was right.
He obviously has absolutely no attention from anybody, and this is his way of finding attention. Both Ken and myself, we both agree that nobody should use any symbol of national identity to offend others deliberately, because that's just inflaming a situation. There's so much sensitivity around so many things today, and people do get offended by so much so quickly without any rhyme or reason.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Lots to talk about here in the company of Claire Muldoon and Leon Emirali. Very nice to see you both here. Claire, let's talk about Scotland.
Yeah.
Scotland, right? I love Scotland. Probably my favourite place on earth outside Ireland. It is. It really is.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's majestic. It's just amazing. Anyway. Somebody has said, a man called Josh Simmons, who's director of an organisation called Labour Together, and he said, Scotland, who cares? In relation to what?
In relation to migrants, he suggests that they ship the migrants up to Orkney or indeed parts of Scotland to get rid of them instead of housing them in England.
Well, why don't we ship him up there?
Well, exactly, but the joke is, he then backfires and dumbs down and says, oh, I'm half Scottish, as if that's his lived experience, as if that makes it OK for him to say it, as if that makes everything OK.
Yeah. No, I've never been to Orkney, a good way off the mainland coast.
Yeah.
Have you ever been?
No, I've never been to Orkney.
But I'm sure it's a lovely place.
Of course it is.
Gorgeous.
There's beautiful, beautiful parts of Orkney, Stornoway, the islands,
filmed Balamory, is it? No.
No, that's near there, but not Orkney at all.
Okay.
But it's just stunning. But
So why are you so offended by this?
because he said, look, if it's people that they can't house here, people that are not seemed as if they're unwanted,
Yes.
then the only place to put them is in Scotland.
Because who cares?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Well, you
actually,
care.
but to be fair, Scotland's SNP would love. They've opened up the doors. Remember, a couple of months ago, last year, they said we welcome refugees. We want the refugees to come because Scotland is a welcoming place. And of course, then it transpired that would only be a footpath, a footway through for them to come down into England. So there's quite a lot
this
here.
is happening in Northern Ireland as well.
Yep, and then the schism between both the Scottish Labour and English Labour now, where they're kind of like really separating themselves.
And there
from
are
Josh's
political
comments.
parties who think there are votes in this for them when people become naturalised.
Yeah, well, naturalised. I mean, I feel so disheartened and I feel so put upon from men wanting to become women in women's spaces to now illegal immigrants, asylum seekers wanting to be Christian. I feel as if my faith's been eroded and my sex has been eroded.
Yeah, but you see, we had this argument today, and there's a lot of religious people who are, just gagging at the idea of getting recruits, so anybody and everybody they will have, and people say, like Isabel's been here beside me, saying that's the job of religious organisations to do that.
No, it's not.
I don't believe it's the job of religious organisations to do that, no.
No, and I'd like to actually ask any one of those that have converted to ask them what today is and what happens on Good Friday. Spoiler alert, he dies.
Spoiler alert, yes, yeah, OK. Leon, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think that Claire's right. I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I think if I was, I'd feel as though the people who are asylum seekers who are effectively claiming they are now Christian, it's not sincere. It's not sincere, and it's for a purpose ultimately that is beyond actually being faithful. So yeah, I'm with you on that, Claire.
Leon, can I ask you about the drama at John Lewis?
Yeah.
The Telegraph. This caught my eye.
Yeah, John Lewis, once the sort of hallmark, really, of being an employer. They don't call their staff team members, they call them partners. Yeah. But it turns out the partners are getting a bit of a tough ride at the moment. A lot of them are facing disciplinary action after some of the workers or the partners, on their intranet, the internal sort of message board online for John Lewis people. They've been voicing some concerns about the way the place is run and are now being hit with disciplinary action. And
well, their bonuses have been frozen or taken away.
Yeah.
Or scrapped, actually, completely scrapped. So, I mean, this seems to be legitimate to me. Their staff partners, yes, they're not robots. They're not slaves.
Quite right. Quite right. Yeah, and I think, John Lewis, reading here, that they had a £234 million loss last year, so that's what's forced them to scrap this staff bonus. But, ultimately, John Lewis, which was the hallmark, as I say, of being a good employer, they seem not to be anymore, and it seems as though reality's biting for them. They can't afford to pay their staff those bonuses, and, I think it's a shame, really, because John Lewis has come under quite a lot of pressure in recent years.
It's lost its way, though. It really has. It used to be never knowingly undersold, remember? And they used to get price matched. But that's basic capitalism. In the lean times, you don't get the rewards. In the good times, you do get the rewards.
But I think...
end off.
Well, I think what is end off as well is that the staff should be allowed to express an opinion about that. And the employers should be allowed to have to deal with it.
Exactly, because you don't want anything to become an echo chamber, do you? You need people to be able to stand up for what they believe and actually tease it out through debate. And the other thing was, this was actually in, as Leon quite rightly pointed out, the internal communications. They didn't like slag the company off on external social media channels. This was all internal.
Do you know, guys, Leon, I don't know ever in your life, and it's probably highly unlikely that you've ever got a bonus. I don't know if you have or not, but when I used to work at Ulster Television, every Christmas, used to get £100 in vouchers to spend in the local supermarket. And you know what, Claire? It was impossible in 1980 to
use the whole 100?
To use the whole 100. I used to give half of it to my mum and whatever. And but it is incredible. It's such a feeling. It's such a good feeling.
Yeah, I bet
to
it
get
is.
a reward or a bonus.
There was no bonuses in Westminster when I worked there, that's for sure. But I can imagine, you know, when you see your work being rewarded, and I think that's what people want to feel. As you said, Eamonn, they aren't robots. We're all human beings. We all want to feel loved.
And
we all
you know
want
what
to feel
else
rewarded.
we're not? We're not even old birds.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
He was
Anyway,
a brave man.
but we could be lovesick. Leon, almost 1 in 4 of us have been clinically lovesick. So they actually, this is a condition, and this is, you know, a broken heart and whatever. Do you believe in it?
You know what, I do believe in it. And I think that ultimately there is a massive link between mental health and physical health. And I saw a story, I think it was earlier this week, the former Dutch Prime Minister, 93, he and his wife were both ill, and they decided to be euthanized, because you can do that in Holland. They decided to be euthanized hand in hand. And I thought, actually, that's quite a nice way to go, because how awful must it be if you're that age and your lifelong partner is no longer with you?
You don't want to be left behind.
You don't want to be left
According to
behind.
that, she
You're
wouldn't have been left that long.
Mm.
According to these statistics, she wouldn't have had to wait that long.
Well, what, do you not agree with being euthanised?
No, I don't. You know I don't.
No, you do.
You're just stoking the fire. And you used to say that I would start a fight in an empty room. You.
But you do start
have you been
fights in
feeding
an
him
empty
brave
room.
pills
He's
today?
got something in his tea, I think. Yeah.
Shake your head. Why don't you? Eh?
No, I think I agree with Leon. I think when the time comes for me, I will say, good, I've had enough, thank you, ready to go.
And you and Ruthie together.
I don't know about that. I wouldn't go that far.
Oh.
Like, for instance, I would want to be buried, and Ruth wants to be burnt. You know, I don't see the point in that.
You've got different ideas when it comes to the end.
I know where I'm going to be buried. I know what my headstone's going to be.
What's your headstone going to be?
Never mind. You'll see. You'll come, no doubt, weeping to visit me. It's all too late. So, love is in the air. Will there be love in the air? I have to ask everybody: is there love in the air for you today and tonight, Leo?
Yeah, there will be. Mrs. Emerali, we're going to be cooking Cornish pasties this evening together. Yeah, so that'll be nice, just to...
Well, do you know how to spoil a girl?
I know, well, because I can't get Just Eat or Deliveroo because they're all on strike.
You've got to be in the kitchen. Have you got a nice bunch of flowers?
I'm going to get some, Ellie, on the way home. But it's a good reminder.
Tap in your and a card. Claire, what are you doing tonight?
What are you even asking for?
She might have some nice plans.
If there's anybody, I'll save you the dating. No, if there's anybody out there, I tell you, she can cook, she can clean, she smells lovely.
She's bright.
I can't clean.
Bye-bye, guys. Here's Greg.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. I'm Greg Dewhurst. It's going to be mostly cloudy across the UK today. There'll be outbreaks of rain, but it is going to be mild. And we can see the cloud across the whole of the UK this morning, with the exception of northern and eastern Scotland. Some sunshine here, but a cold start, temperatures below freezing. As we move through the day, the cloud and the mild air and the rain pushes its way northeastwards, perhaps a few heavy bursts at times. A few glimmers of brightness from time to time, but most places staying cloudy. And temperatures, well, above average for the time of year, 14, 15 Celsius towards southern areas. Still chilly across far north of Scotland in some bright spells, 6 or 7 degrees. But moving through into the evening time, further cloud and rain pushing northwards. It will turn heavy at times, but there will be some drier interludes. But even in these drier slots, there'll be some drizzle in the winds. And then overnight, some heavier bursts of rain starting to develop, and exceptionally mild, 11 or 12 Celsius as a minimum, higher than where they should be for during the daytime at this point in the year. So a wet start to Thursday across many areas, but particularly across parts of the Midlands, northern England. Through the day, the rain continues here. Further north and west, outbreaks of rain too. A few glimmers of brightness perhaps towards the southeast and also parts of Northern Ireland, and exceptionally mild for everyone, where we do see some glimmers of sunshine. 15 or 16 Celsius is possible, well above where they should be for the time of year. See you again soon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
You have a president in President Biden who's not enforcing the law that was passed by Congress. President Obama, criticize him or not, actually enforced the law and was deporting people that had crossed illegally. Of course, President Trump enforced the law and improved the law to make sure that and worked with Mexico to have the Remain in Mexico policy. Biden has abandoned federal policy. In fact, he's deliberately trying to let in as many immigrants as possible. More for the Democrats, more is better and less is racist.
Just astonishing. And the statement that Greg Abbott put out is really feisty stuff. He said the federal government has broken the contract between the United States and the state of Texas. And in the eye numbers, Greg, are simply eye-watering. 6 million illegal immigrants have crossed our southern border in just 3 years, Governor Abbott says. That's more than the population of 33 states in the United States. Astonishing numbers.
And Martin, that's just Texas. If you add Arizona and other border states, you know, it's pushing 10 million. By the end of Biden's term, it'll be 11 million. A study by Yale University a few weeks ago, 3 very liberal professors that did the study estimate there's 22 million illegal aliens. So this is a crisis that was created by Biden. It's what he wants. They want unfettered access to the border. They're letting them in. It's a real hardship on the working people of Texas and other border states. And now it's a real hardship on cities that the federal government, as well as the governors of Texas and other states, are sending some of the migrants to those so-called sanctuary cities.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock on Wednesday, the 14th of February. It is Valentine's Day. Sending lots of love to you.
Yes.
This is breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Ellie
Thank you for everybody who's flooded our inboxes today. But I am taken. But I appreciate it, and the love was there. And I to all of you, thank you. Thank you very, very much indeed. Ellie, over to you.
Thank you. The Labour Party is in turmoil. Another suspension over anti-Semitic remarks. Sir Keir Starmer now playing catch-up to defend his party.
Inflation holds at 4%. So what does that mean for the economy, Liam Halligan?
Indeed, inflation's held at 4% in January. The cost of living crisis, it isn't getting any worse, but it isn't getting any better. And happy Valentine's Day to my Valentine.
Oh.
She knows who she is. She knows who she is.
That's so cute, Liam. Well, love is in the air today and in the studio, but if you have forgotten something for that special someone, never fear, we've got you covered. The best last-minute presents just for you and your loved one.
OK. And we've been paying tribute this morning to the legendary BBC broadcaster Steve Wright, one of the country's most loved radio voices, who passed away yesterday.
Hello there. Cloudy skies for many of us today. Temperatures well above average for the time of year. Find out how high coming up later in the programme.
OK, so 2 hours ago we heard that inflation remains unchanged at 4% for January. Food prices falling for the first time in 3 years.
However, it remains double the Bank of England's target at 2%. The Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, says that inflation never falls in a perfect straight line, but he says the plan is working. And the bank also predicts it could fall to 4%, that's their target, in a matter of months.
Is he telling the truth there about never falls in a straight line? Let's find out from our economics and business editor, Liam Halligan, or does that just suit his narrative at the moment?
I think he's onto something, Eamonn. Certainly the trend of inflation's down. Back in October 2022, inflation was 11%. So prices that month were 11% higher.
And you're talking October 22.
Yeah, from October in October 2022, not so long ago, inflation was 11%. That meant in October 2022, prices on average were 11% higher than October 2021. And last month, January 24, prices were on average 4% higher than in January 2023. Let's have a look at some of the numbers here, the scores on the doors. There you got 4% inflation January 2024. Why was inflation still relatively high, twice the Bank of England's target? We had higher gas and electricity prices compared to the same month last year. You said food price inflation has gone down. It went down on the month, but on the year, food prices are still 7% above in January where they were in January 2023. Transport inflation, that has actually gone negative. So transport prices are lower now than they were in January 2023, largely because the price of petrol and diesel on the year has come down. So Jeremy Hunt is right, inflation doesn't fall in a straight line, but the government will be disappointed that they haven't got another fall in inflation ahead of those two by-elections in Kingswood and Wellingborough tomorrow.
And what can we expect to happen in terms of interest rates now, do you think?
Well, interest rates are at 5.25%. We've had 14 successive rate rises since the end of 2021. The Bank of England, the Monetary Policy Committee, the 9 economists who call where interest rates should be, they've been rapidly raising interest rates over recent months. They've been at 5.25% since August. Since then, though, because the sense is that the next move is going to be down, commercial interest rates, mortgage rates, the cost of personal loans if you take out a new loan, they've actually started to come down and they're way below 5% for most people. I think the actual base rate, the Bank of England's rate, it isn't going to come down at the next meeting now because inflation hasn't come down. That's March the 21st. But I think we could see a rate cut in either April or May, and I've been saying that for quite a few months, Ellie.
Well, let's hope we can see it in April or May. I think lots of people will be hoping for the same thing. Liam Halligan, thank you very much.
Thanks, Liam. Jack Carson, let's go to Jack now. He's in Birmingham to get reaction from folk there this morning on what they're hearing. What do they make of inflation, Jack?
Well, it's rather actually more of a positive outlook this morning because, of course, a lot of forecasters have predicted that inflation would go up. Of course, it went up 0.1% last time. There was forecasts saying it could go up to the likes of 4.5%. So the fact that it stayed the same is maybe a bit of a surprise for a lot of people that are heading to work here in Birmingham this morning. But Liam was mentioning there things like food and non-alcoholic beverages and that impact there, of course, decreasing by 0.4% from December. But of course, you look at the figure compared to January 2022, too, and it's still up around 25% with prices. So people still here saying that they really still are feeling that impact on their weekly shop when they go out and buy a few bits. Of course, the likes of furniture has come down on this point last year, which of course is better news, but it's that offset as well, of course, with the likes of the services industry where prices maybe have gone up, which is why that this figure is just staying at the minute quite stagnant at 4%. Of course, you were talking there about Jeremy Hunt, and he's saying he never falls in a straight line. Rachel Reeves, of course, the Shadow Chancellor, saying that it's still higher than the Bank of England's targets and that millions of families are still struggling with the cost of living. She says the Conservatives cannot fix the economy.
Jack, I'm just trying to work out where exactly you are in Birmingham. Where are you? Near the Bull Ring, or where are you?
So I'm just on the edge of Victoria Square, which is outside the council house. So this is kind of one end of the high street here in Birmingham.
Do you envisage if I've been there where you are?
Yeah.
And just imagine where you are, and people will be coming up, hopefully giving you their best. Thank you for the roundup, Jack. Really appreciate it.
Now, the Labour Party are in turmoil today as Sir Keir Starmer is forced to drop a second parliamentary candidate due to alleged anti-Semitic comments.
Graham Jones used an expletive to refer to Israel and said British people who fight in the Israeli Defence Forces should be locked up. He was due to stand for Labour in his former seat of Hyndburn at the general election.
Well, let's bring in our political editor, Christopher Hope. Good morning to you, Christopher. So 2 Labour candidates now suspended over alleged anti-Semitism.
That's right, 2 in 2 days. And I think there's pressure really on Sir Keir Starmer to get a grip of this problem. Of course, we know about Azhar Ali. He's the candidate in the upcoming Rochdale by-election. Sir Keir Starmer stuck with him for 2 days, Saturday night to Monday night, then dropped him. And then from the same meeting where Mr Ali made remarks suggesting that Israel may have encouraged the attacks on the country so it could attack back into Gaza, we heard remarks from Graham Jones. Now, Graham Jones is an experienced politician, 2010 to 2019. He was the MP for Hyndburn. He wants to be the MP for Hyndburn again to take it back from Sarah Brickliffe, one of the Tory Red Wallers. He's now being suspended pending an investigation after he used an expletive to describe Israel. The party is now getting its act in order and trying to deal with this claims of anti-Semitism back in the Labour Party. But it looks like the point of Keir Starmer when he came in was, I am not like Jeremy Corbyn. I'll get a grip. I will deal with this cancer in the party of anti-Semitism. And it looks like it hasn't worked in some parts of the country. Claims, of course, from these individuals who deny those, but claims that it's still rife in some parts of the country. And that's part of the problem that Sir Keir Starmer's got. And you have grandees in a party like Lord Kinnock, Neil Kinnock, asking why they're getting this wrong. Why is the party not being quicker to deal with when these allegations emerge? And looking back to last week with a £28 billion commitment on green investment, that was dropped, and that was going to be every year for the last couple of years by the end of the next Parliament. So real questions here about Sir Keir Starmer's leadership, and of course the Tory party is delighted.
I mean, there is criticism in some of the papers this morning saying that the party is now indistinguishable from the Corbyn years. And as you're saying, he wants to get away from that. He's the man who promised to clean up Labour. On that note, do you think that this fatally undermines the reputation of Labour in an election year?
We're not fatally undermining it yet, but certainly it's a problem, and it draws attention to what on earth is Sir Keir Starmer doing sometimes? Why is he dithering before taking action? We knew about the claims about Mr Ali, and of course he's taken them back and regrets them. But we had those remarks out Saturday night. The party stuck with him for 48 hours, and when you're in a by-election campaign, that means that colleagues of yours start campaigning for that candidate. So we saw Lisa Nandy at an event with Mr Ali on Sunday. We had Nick Thomas-Symonds was out there. Pat McFadden had to defend him and then say why he'd been suspended. This is all deeply embarrassing, damages Sir Keir within his top leadership group in the party, and also for the wider country. They look at Labour and go, well, has it really changed? What will happen when this party's in government? The easy part, I think, is when you're in opposition. The hard bit is in government, as being seen by the Tories. If you can't get opposition right, why should you be allowed to run a government?
And that is the question. Christopher, thank you very much indeed. The other candidates standing in the Rochdale by-election are Azhar Ali, Independent, Mark Coleman, Independent, Simon Danchuk, Reform UK, Ian Donaldson, Liberal Democrat, Paul Ellison, Conservative.
George Galloway, the Workers' Party of Britain, Michael Howarth, Independent, William Howarth, Independent, Guy Otten, the Green Party, Ravin Rodent Subordinate, Official Monster Raving Loony Party, and David Tully, Independent.
When I was very young, we used to have a woman who was called our Aunt Rosie, but she wasn't our aunt at all. Her name was Rosie Duddy, and she smelled beautiful, and she wore lovely coats and things. She should come sort of every 6 weeks or so to visit my mum. And when she came, she brought a bag of sweeties. She had sweeties to give to me and my brothers. We always looked forward to her being there. And she had this certain type of sweet, which I have never seen since. And I don't know what it was until Pip Thompson came into the studio this morning wearing the colour of green and black. It was green and black. That was the colour of the sweet.
Would it be, I don't know, a licorice all sort maybe?
No.
Was it mint?
I think it was a mint.
Yeah, like a mint imperial. Humbug or something.
A humbug.
Yes.
Does this mean she looks good enough to eat?
Good enough. That's what I was getting round to say.
Exactly.
On this Valentine's
I'm a red rebel today.
Are you?
You're making me water. So not water. What's the word? Maybe moist. What's the word? What's the term?
Let's leave it there.
Mouth-watering she is. Mouth-watering.
Conversation for 9 in the morning.
Yeah. So what
Ruth might be watching.
Yeah.
Oh, Aunt Rosie's dead. She's dead now. She won't be watching.
Okay,
but that's why I don't know what it is. But it'll come to me. If anybody knows what sweet was that colour, green with black stripes on it, let me know.
Okay, that's our call out this morning, Andrew. Forget everything else that's going on. Yeah.
And we are talking obviously about the Labour Party, but the Telegraph is suggesting that 3 or 4 more Labour MPs will have to be investigated. This is a big problem, and I don't think he has cleared out.
Here's my issue with this. Here's my issue. Whether they're anti-Semitic or not.
Yeah.
Do we now all have to worry about saying anything that is critical of the Israeli authorities or Judaism in general or whatever? Are you not allowed to be critical?
You are, but you're not allowed to be Jew-hating. And what Azhar Ali said was disgusting. He said that they deliberately encouraged the Hamas terrorist assault in Israel so they could go in all guns blazing. A disgusting thing to say. And it's a mad conspiracy theory as well that's on the internet. And then he was going on about all these theories put around by the Jewish media. Which Jewish media is that? So you just can't be anti-Semitic again. But of course you can be critical of Israel. But there's a difference between that and being hateful of Jews.
We will be digging more into that. And also, we want to pay our tributes as well to Steve Wright.
Yes, sad.
You know, radio king. Such a shock that death was for many people. Paul Gambaccini will be with us.
Oh, top man, yeah.
He's great, man.
But I'll tell you what, people will say, oh, it was legendary, all this business, people who don't know, people who never listened to him and whatever. He is one of the people, when his voice came on the radio, it made me feel good, it made me feel warm, it made me feel
I said
safe.
exactly that on X last night. I said his voice was as comforting as a cup of tea.
Yes. Yeah. Do you know what I love? The fact that he would sort of take comments from viewers and things, and it'd be just want to say, this is Mary in Cheltenham. Steve, loving the show, love how you present it, love everything you do.
I know.
And he would read out all the best comments about himself.
A legend, and shame on the BBC for axing his afternoon show.
Well, I think that's a bit embarrassing that they pay tribute to a legend.
Yeah.
Our friend and colleague.
Yeah, who they'd completely shafted.
Just 15 months ago.
Yeah. And look at the listening figures since he left. They've collapsed.
Thank you, guys. Look forward to that 9:30.
Thank you. Now, do you fancy the chance to win £18,000 cash in our Great British Giveaway? Well, you have to be in it to win it, and here's how.
Still time to turn 2024 into 2020 more with your chance to win £18,000 in cash to spend however you like. You really could be the next big winner of our Great British Giveaway. Phil from West Yorkshire won our last one. Listen to his reaction when we gave him the news.
I never won a penny in my life.
Well, congratulations, you've won £10,000.
Oh my God, wow.
But hurry, for another chance to win £18,000 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB02 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 23rd of February. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
No, if you had 18 grand, you wouldn't have to worry about what I'm about to talk about. That is the price of flowers, the price of blooms on this Valentine's Day. A lot of people say, well, it's not worth the money, it's not worth the effort. But what is worth the effort? What is worth the money? We've got a florist going to do us up a few blooms and present them to you right after this.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Lots of people have different ideas, but principally a conservative approach to getting growth is to reduce taxes so that people, ordinary people and businesses can spend more of their own money to invest and grow the economy.
So the theory is that you cut taxes and that then pumps more money into the economy.
Exactly right. And then people, you know, it's not government that are creating wealth. It's individuals, businessmen, companies that create wealth. It's the private sector that creates wealth, that the public sector then taxes and spends.
I get the theory, but one of the criticisms of you,
sure,
and I think one of the criticisms actually of all political parties, is they appear to be incapable of cutting government spending.
That's the key. I mean, and I think when I look back, is that we should have had a credible plan to reduce the increase in spending. Now, that's often a difficult concept to explain.
But it's in line with inflation, etc.
That's all right. So when you're slowing the increase, it means, you know, one year you spend £100 and the next year you spend maybe £101 as opposed to going up to £110. So the actual level isn't going down, but you're slowing the increase. And that's very much what I tried to do. And actually, looking back, the one thing I wish I'd done, was to present a credible spending plan at the same time as the tax cuts that we announced.
You had a go, it didn't work out for whatever reason, and that analysis will go on for some years to come. We have Jeremy Hunt there as Chancellor now, hinting quite strongly now there won't be any tax cuts, but the truth of it is, under 14 years of Conservatives, for a variety of reasons, the tax burden has risen.
That's right.
To the highest since the Attlee government, way back in
80 years,
1951,
years,
whatever
right.
it is.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Today, February the 14th, Valentine's Day, is the biggest day for who?
Florists,
Correct.
worldwide.
Yeah.
Spend a fortune.
Let's go live via satellite to the owner of Pesh Flowers. That's Elaine Graham. And Elaine, really appreciate your time today, Elaine, because you must be working flat out.
Oh, absolutely crazy. So this is a nice 5-minute sit down I don't usually get.
Look what you're surrounded with. There's so many different colours, so many different bouquets and whatever. What's your best seller today?
It used to be a red rose, but I've found in the last 2 years that actually more and more of our customers are going for more of a mixed bouquet, so kind of brighter colours, maybe with a couple of roses in, or even one of our kind of more natural, kind of whimsical looking bouquets.
Lovely. And are your prices higher today than they would be at any other time of the year?
They are a little bit, yeah. Our supplier, it's obviously worldwide, the demand for particularly anything red and pink. So yes, the prices do go up to us, our cost increases, so therefore that gets passed on. But it is a gorgeous product, and you can't put a price on the smile that you get when someone answers the door and you've got a great big bouquet to deliver to them.
I agree with you, Elaine. I mean, they look absolutely beautiful around you. What's your favourite bouquet that you've got? I like the one in your hand.
This is probably what I would choose if I was going to be sent flowers. So this has got some flowers in here that I've actually grown myself. So we've got lovely hellebores, more kind of seasonal spring. We've got ranunculus, scented stocks. So things with a fragrance are really lovely.
Very nice.
And do you find that you have to really help men that come into your store? Sorry if I'm making a generalisation here.
Hate men?
But help men, that come in and they don't really know what to look for Valentine's Day. Do you find that you have to kind of put something together for them?
Yes, we're there sort of to guide and to start by saying what does your partner like? You know, what colours are in your house? What's the personality? And then you can try and fit the flowers to that rather than always going to the kind of stereotypical red rose.
Oh yeah, personality. I'll need prickly. So is there roses with thorns on them? That's we have to do those.
A beautiful bouquet.
What? Tell us. What would you expect, or what should people expect? How much should they lay out? How much should they be expecting to spend on, the average sort of bouquet?
I think you'd be looking at a price from sort of £50 and upwards for a really nice selection. Be aware of anything that's too cheap because it's probably supermarket, sort of put together, not so well. But if you're looking for a really nice quality product, then sort of £70. Sort of we do bouquets well into the £100 if you want a sort of really large bouquet. So it just depends on your budget. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with coming home with a really beautiful bunch of tulips and spending sort of less. It's
unless they're from the petrol station or the supermarket. I'm sensing that you're saying.
I would say that's not going to get the return that you're after if you're going to spend.
So, Elaine, what would you say to people who say that Valentine's Day, we've lost the meaning of it, it's become too commercialised, that we're all spending, what was it, average of £50 each on Valentine's Day, and we've lost the meaning of what it is truly about, which is love?
I don't think so, because I think the sentiment is still there. You're still going out and you're buying a card, you're thinking about who you're giving it to, you're choosing flowers, you're thinking about a gift arriving at the door or at work, even better, so all their friends can see it. So I don't think the message is lost. Yes, it has become commercialised, but what hasn't these days? But I do think that the sentiment and the feeling and some of the card messages we have to write out show that, love is still at the forefront of Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Well, look, listen, we will leave you hot and heavy there to do all that you do and that amazing skill that you have, blending all those blooms together. Elaine, thank you. Elaine Graham there is the owner of Pesh Flowers. Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you, Elaine. And all your beautiful blooms as well. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Duncan says, can I remind everyone, including my partner, that Valentine's Day is for single people who are too shy to ask someone out on a date for the first time. That's it. It's be my Valentine, not please continue to be my Valentine. I don't agree with you, Duncan.
No, you have to ask your significant other to be your Valentine. You always have to ask.
And you always got to revive the love.
Yes.
You've got to keep that going.
Always time for romance. And romance on a budget as well. Stuart says he's got a meal deal for two, not meal deal, dining for two, for £12, 3 courses and a bottle of fizzy wine. It doesn't take a lot to impress, he says, and it's true, you can do it on a budget. And on this note, Eamonn, I've got a little Valentine's Day gift for you, which I thought you might like. Oh,
look at that.
Look at this.
Well, it's not for you.
Is it not?
No.
Because they're my favourite.
Oh, wait a minute. Are they?
Yeah.
Well, it's got your name in here.
Oh, it does have my name in it. Oh, thank you. They smell amazing.
They do smell amazing, don't they? Smell quite different.
Oh, they are just
show them. It's too much brown paper to see them.
White tulips. Can you see those?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. I'll show you those. Absolutely beautiful. And Eamonn, I've got a gift for you on this Valentine's Day. Not flowers. I got you something that I thought you'd love.
This is where Isabel regrets taking this week off. That's what I'd say. Oh, what's this? What's this? What's this?
Look at this. It's
a bake tray.
The Greggs bake tray. Open this up here, and it's all your favourite things in the world.
What, sausage roll? God, it is. It is. It's amazing. That is incredible. So what do you get in there? A steak sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A sausage roll.
A sausage, bean and cheese dream. A creamy chicken softie.
Yeah, and there's even a vegan sausage delight if that tickles your fancy. And talking about the smell that.
Well, that's very good.
A happy Valentine's Day.
Breakfast beckons. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks for watching this week. We'll see you again next week. Ellie's back tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm back
from
tomorrow.
6. Have
happy
a good
Valentine's Day.
Bye.
Hello there. Welcome to your latest GB News weather. I'm Greg Dewhurst. It's going to be mostly cloudy across the UK today. There'll be outbreaks of rain, but it is going to be mild. And we can see the cloud across the whole of the UK this morning, with the exception of northern and eastern Scotland. Some sunshine here, but a cold start, temperatures below freezing. As we move through the day, the cloud and the mild air and the rain pushes its way northeastwards, perhaps a few heavy bursts at times. A few glimmers of brightness from time to time, but most places staying cloudy. And temperatures, well, above average for the time of year, 14, 15 Celsius towards southern areas. Still chilly across far north of Scotland in some bright spells, 6 or 7 degrees. But moving through into the evening time, further cloud and rain pushing northwards. It will turn heavy at times, but there will be some drier interludes. But even in these drier slots, there'll be some drizzle in the winds. And then overnight, some heavier bursts of rain starting to develop, and exceptionally mild, 11 or 12 Celsius as a minimum, higher than where they should be for during the daytime at this point in the year. So a wet start to Thursday across many areas, but particularly across parts of the Midlands, northern England. Through the day, the rain continues here. Further north and west, outbreaks of rain too. A few glimmers of brightness perhaps towards the southeast and also parts of Northern Ireland, and exceptionally mild for everyone, where we do see some glimmers of sunshine. 15 or 16 Celsius is possible, well above where they should be for the time of year. See you again soon.
Morning. Another big day politically for the Labour Party. The crisis on anti-Semitism continues. A second candidate has been suspended. Talk more could follow. And is Keir Starmer dealing with it? Not well.
It's getting ever deeper. We're also paying tribute to the incredible DJ Steve Wright, who has died at the age of 69. Stay with us.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.